Hello, everybody. How are we doing? Hope you're all well tonight. Hope everybody's having a good week so far. I wouldn't want to be a member of Congress, at least a Republican member of Congress. That's for sure. Please like and share the live, friends. Gifting is turned off this evening. I think I finally got it right. If you would like to support the channel, there is a Cash App in my bio. Also, I'm not sure if I let people know this. I have finally created a YouTube page, and the link to that is in my bio. And if you would love to follow there, basically what I'm doing is I'm reposting lives and some other content. I'm working on building out a podcast. So I'll be doing it there too. So please subscribe. And I would love to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Again, in support of this, in support of what we do. Really appreciate that. So there's a lot going on, and I want to caution people. There apparently is a group of agitators that are out there to intentionally try to bring down creators on the left's live. So we'll be keeping our eyes on that this evening. We do have a lot of topics I want to cover tonight. So let's talk about what's in the news. And Anthony will be joining us in a little bit. What's in the news? So the Nevada primary was yesterday, and Donald Trump did not appear on the ballot. He instead will be part of the caucus, which is tomorrow. Nikki Haley was on the ballot. It didn't exactly go very well for her because Nikki Haley lost to none of these candidates. That's right. NBC News projected that more voters chose to not pick a candidate at all than back Haley. There's that. Imagine that. Imagine that. Think about that. You lost to nobody. I guess that just confirms, obviously, what we've already known, that Trump has a stranglehold on the nomination. South Carolina's up next for her. The Kremlin has confirmed that Tucker Carlson will be doing the interview of Vladimir Putin. They said that they granted it because he is sympathetic towards Putin and his way of running things. Okay. By the way, Putin has not granted an interview with a credible Western journalist in 4 years. Tucker Carlson is not a credible journalist. Russia will use this as propaganda, no doubt. I'll be curious though. I want to see if Tucker asked him some tough questions. Like if you want to consider yourself a journalist, then you should be asking Vladimir Putin about missing citizens and the poisoning of Alexei Navalny and the whereabouts of the 20 people that were referenced in the Mueller report, or journalists just disappearing randomly, right? Or his country's role in misinformation campaign. So we'll see, and it's going to be a puff piece. We know that. Whatever. I think the important call out though is that Russia is at it again. We know there'll be massive amounts of misinformation that's coming. We're already seeing it. It's everywhere. That's why we did that live last week on media literacy, and it's navigating through misinformation. So we'll be talking more about that every single day. What else? Yesterday may be, this is open for debate, but it may be one of the worst legislative days in United States congressional history. We already know that the 118th Congress is just, I don't even know how we would describe it. But not only do we know that the border bill is officially dead, the border bill again that they wanted. And on that topic, I don't think Republicans realize, I was thinking about this today, I don't think Republicans realize the gift that they gave Joe Biden yesterday. Because everything in that bill, I talked about it last night, an absolutely horrible bill, horrible, did nothing to address DACA, did nothing to address Dreamers, did nothing to address, path to citizenship, did nothing to address, humanitarian relief, humanitarian decisions regarding immigration policies. It was literally the wet dream for Republicans, right? And if it had passed the Senate and the House and Joe Biden signed it into law, he would have taken a lot of heat, including from myself, from people on the left, because of the fact that it was just a horrible bill. So I don't think Republicans realize the gift that they gave to Joe Biden. Let's see how they run with it. Anyway, so after that nonsense, again, the bitching and the moaning about doing something for the border failed miserably. The bitching and the moaning come from the right that they wanted single issue bills to vote on. So they were presented a single issue bill in the House on Israel funding, and it failed. That was right after they failed to impeach Mayorkas. That's a rough day. But don't worry, friends. Don't worry. They did have some success. More than 60 Republicans, led by Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida, Florida man, and Elise Stefanik of New York, said on Tuesday that they had signed onto a resolution declaring that Mr. Trump did not engage in insurrection. Yeah. The measure aims to influence courts and state election officials who are weighing whether Mr. Trump is eligible to hold the office under the 14th Amendment's ban on insurrectionists. We'll talk about that in a minute. An issue that is casting a cloud over the primary season. The measure aims to influence courts and state election officials. J.D. Vance in Ohio is going to do something in the Senate, something similar. They're telling us out loud right now. I mean, literally, it's just that's the game that they're playing. That's the game that is the game that they're playing. They do not give a shit about policy. They don't care about legislating. They don't care about anything like that. Not a damn thing. Nothing. That's the whole ball game. So again, their priorities for the border failed. Their priority was impeaching Mayorkas, failed. Their priority was passing or voting on single issue bills, which is just ridiculous anyway. That failed. So instead, they bend a knee to the traitor in chief. Crazy, right? Crazy. So all those things are on the docket tonight, but I do want to have this conversation because tomorrow is the oral arguments for the 14th Amendment decision coming out of Colorado. Now, the things that we have to talk about. So the statements of fact in this case. The trial court judge in Colorado has already determined, based on their interpretation of the law, that Donald Trump engaged in insurrection. The Supreme Court upheld that component of the decision, right? We should back up a second. The 14th Amendment, that trial judge affirmed that decision. The Supreme Court said the same. And in fact, the Supreme Court in Colorado, even on the dissent, the conservatives who dissented, did not disagree with that ruling. So we now have as a statement of fact, damn it, how can the gifts be on again? There's something wrong with the settings, guys, because I literally checked it 4 times before I went live, and it said that they were in fact off. So I'm not accepting gifts. I don't know what the hell is going on. It's nuts. Anyway, just before I went live, I checked it. It was off. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. So the Supreme Court, in their decision, affirmed that, yes, he did engage in insurrection. And even in the dissent, the conservative judges who dissented did not disagree. The question then becomes whether or not the language of the 14th Amendment, and I'll read it to you. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid and or comfort to the enemies thereof. So what the Supreme Court is going to be dealing with, because they're not going to debate the facts. The facts have already been determined by these courts. The question to them is whether or not the president of the United States is considered an officer. And I don't know where they're going to land. I really don't know where the U.S. Supreme Court is going to land on this. But the oral arguments are tomorrow, so I guess we'll find out. It's a crazy case. So you don't have to be charged with insurrection, just so you know. The irony of this whole thing this week is we've got these 2 massive decisions that are the whole ballgame. We already know that the J6 trial will continue. The Trump team has until Monday to file a brief. The way that it was worded from the D.C. Circuit Court's decision was that if he requests an en banc appeal, en banc would mean the entire D.C. Circuit, then the trial starts up again immediately. If he decides to appeal to the Supreme Court, which he likely will, then the stay remains in place. The general opinion, the majority of opinion and I've been looking at right and left wing news on this topic, is that the Supreme Court will not take the case. And Tanya Chutkan, who's the D.C. Circuit Court judge, said in her opinion initially that when she agreed to stay the case, she also said that she would give the Trump team between 6 and 7 months to prepare for trial. So it's taken about 8 weeks since the initial stay was put in place. So if you basically add 2 months to that trial date of March 4th, which was the original date, that would put us at what? May. So that trial will happen this summer and he will be convicted. So that's what's going to happen. So, Magda, I guess the question I have for you, I speak to so many people who say you support the Constitution, specifically the 2A. So what's more important to you and why? Is the 14th Amendment more important than the second? Or is the second more important than the 14th? And I want to know why. So those are the topics tonight. Again, I apologize if gifts are not off. I triple checked before I went live. There's that little button. You click it, you turn gifts off. The gifts are off. I don't know what the hell happened. So please do not gift. Please do not gift this evening. I would really appreciate it. And let's jump in. Good evening. You might be wrong.
How are you, sir?
Well, how are you?
I am doing really well. Thanks for having me up.
Absolutely. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I was listening to your question.
Mhm.
What's more important, the Second Amendment or the 14th?
Yes.
It's an interesting question. There's a hack.
You cut out there for a second. You said you cut out after interesting question. What else? You got a bad signal, bro. I can barely hear you. Hello?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, bro. I can't hear you. You keep cutting out. Are you you're in a bad spot?
Oh, hold on just a sec. Hold on just a second. I'm by a hill. Let me move over here real quick. Can you hear me better now?
That's better. Yes.
I'm by a big metal building, and it might have messed with my phone service.
Okay. It's good right there.
So what I was saying was, I think it's a very good question. I think it's very interesting, and I'd really like to hear your opinion, but I'm happy to share mine first.
That's why I'm asking.
I think there's a great deal of importance for
hey, bro, I'm sorry.
Legal community.
I'm going to drop you. Why don't you request again, because you keep cutting in and out, and I want to have that conversation with you. So please, if you can get to a spot where your service is a little bit better, I'll bring you right back up. The chat was saying they can't hear you either, so let's have that conversation. But we gotta get to a better spot where there's better Wi-Fi, if you don't mind. I think what I was hearing you say was there's a lot of nuance, and I would agree. That's the whole point. So that's the conversation that I want to have this evening, MAGA. Right? I want people. I really want that understanding. I want people to decide. I'm going to put you on the spot. What's more important and why? Right? And why? All right. We'll try that again. Let's see if it's better.
Okay. Is that better?
That's better. Yes.
Is that better?
Yes, that's better. Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's really important for the legal ramifications and the definitions of the 14th Amendment are extremely vague. And I say that because I'm a big believer that laws should be written in plain language so that anyone can read the law and anyone can interpret it. The discourse in our country right now around this subject is unhealthy, to put it in a mild way, I'd say. Because of how vague and non-descriptive people are perceiving this to be, I'd say it's a good exercise that we get to explore this now, and Orange Man is the recipient of it. So be it.
Okay.
The Second Amendment,
is
equally important because
hang on one second. Bro.
I think it is.
Hang on one second, bro. Hang on one second. So before we move to the second, what's vague from your perspective? What's vague about the 14th?
There is not a definition. There is not a breakdown of sorry, I dropped my phone. There's not a breakdown of definition and an explanation of what the defining characteristics of the word insurrection are. It also does not define the. There's not a standard by which it should be measured, described in the Constitution. using the word insurrection. So it's easy to say, yeah, that person engaged in insurrection. Well, what does that mean? Does that make sense?
Well, it's not just insurrection though; it's also rebellion against the United States as well. So there's two components to it. I don't see it as vague. I understand your point, but I think again, you're talking about textually, and don't forget, courts have already decided based on their interpretation that he did in fact engage in insurrection.
Okay. Well, I hope that a piece of legislation comes out as a result of this so that there is a more clear definition for the general population, because I'd say that half of the country disagrees with that decision.
You think, I mean, how would you know half? Is that an opinion?
It's just an opinion.
Okay.
I would say half of the country. I mean, there's a lot of argument that, there's a lot of people who want Trump to be president no matter what the consequences are, and those people, they're not willing to hear it. So
but that's not half the country.
That tells me that they are.
But that's not half the country.
Again, that's an opinion. That's when I said I would say that is just an opinion. I'm not stating that as a fact.
Oh, it's okay, but I'm just saying if we look at the last election, it was 74 million people that voted for him, so that's not half the country. So if you want to say if there's 74 million people that would disagree, then sure, we can add that. So I just want to be
okay.
factual on that topic.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So the importance of the Second Amendment also, I see what you're getting at, or I assume I see what you're getting at here with the Second Amendment versus the 14th Amendment, and which one is more important. There are people that are perceived or shown in a light to be willing to use the Second Amendment to defend the opposition of the 14th. And while I disagree with that, because I don't think that is a matter of constituting that type of behavior, it also brings into question the merit and intended purpose for the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So which one I think is more important? If we have to exercise one of them, I would say the Second Amendment is more important.
Bro, I'm sorry. I got to kick you. Your connection is so bad.
The Second Amendment.
Bro, I'm sorry, man. I got to kick you. Your connection is so bad. It's like you're cutting out every other word. So if you want to come back when you're in a more robust environment, and we can have a better conversation, but there's just too much going on there. Sorry. I mean, I'll have that conversation with you. You could totally come back, but you can't hear every other word. Hey, man.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Living the dream or something like that. I'm getting my little tripod here set up. So,
are you still high and dry out there?
We are dry. It has not rained much, although it looks like it's going to start to rain again tonight. So I'm a little concerned for people who live in around the foothill areas because the ground is so damn soft. I'm really afraid about mudslides and stuff like that. Right.
Gotcha. Well, welcome into Wednesday night. Just as a reminder to folks that are tuning in tonight, please like and share. I triple checked before I went live tonight. It said gifts were off, so I don't know what's going on. My conspiracy theory is that TikTok is catching on to this and they're making it difficult for people to do these things. I saw somebody else had that same issue earlier today. But again, anyway, we're not accepting gifts. If you would like to support the channel, there's a Cash App in my bio. We'll leave it right there. So, funny, you and I went back and forth, and we were joking about the letter that was drafted by 60 Republican members of Congress led by Matt Gaetz. I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but there was an interview with Marjorie Three Toes, and she was complaining that I think his name is Al Green. He's a veteran member of Congress who's going through some medical treatment. He showed up to vote in his hospital attire so that he could cast that vote to keep Mayorkas from being impeached. And she complained about it. She said, well, he was hiding in a room and he came out at the last minute to vote. You mean he came out and did his job by voting?
Yeah.
They're just not
Yeah.
serious people. Not serious people.
Well, she is the same person that would like to say that and then talk about the rules of decorum after
Right.
showing
Right.
Hunter Biden's junk in a hearing.
Yeah, and you know what's funny, Anthony, is because just the other day, instead of indictable, she said the word indictable. Now, I know that she's divorced recently, and she showed the picture of Hunter's, junk. So she's probably got something on her mind. I'm just saying. I'm not judging. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah, there's that.
Hashtag Hunter wins either way.
Hashtag Hunter wins. So apparently there is a group of people that are intentionally trying to take down lives today and this evening. So we'll keep our eyes peeled. Okay.
I'm shocked.
I know.
This is my shocked face.
I'm with you. EA1, how are you tonight?
I'm great, thank you.
What's on your mind this evening?
It's just a bunch of misinformation that just seems to bother me. I work at a restaurant, but I actually own a business, and I just took a little bit time off from my business, and there was a young kid in there, and he wants to be like a Texas Ranger, or something like that. And I walk back in, and I'm getting like a little drink for a guest, and he's just going to town, just about Biden is the worst, and like the economy is bad. That's the only thing they know how to say. The economy is bad. And then they're like, and I'm like, oh, well, what about the GDP? You know what I mean? Like, it's gone up. What about gas being low? I'm just sitting here stating facts. And he's, oh, no. And I'm like, you're a product of your environment, is what I said. You are a part of a patriarchy that is, that there's nothing wrong with having like a system in your life to where, you pass on generational wealth. But to me, it's just very irritating when they're just a product of their circle. And he's like, well, I'm entitled to my opinion. I'm like, of course you are. But I mean, at least be informed. Because when I walk in the room and I hear you spewing, nonsense, I'm going to say something, and you're going to look confused. And it's okay that I know that he's telling a lie, but he's telling other young people lies because they're like in their 20s. I'm a little bit older. And so it's just a lot of people are just misinformed, and they just keep talking, and they hear these talking points. And I don't even know how Marjorie Taylor Greene is even in office. Like, I am appalled. Like, our standards used to be way higher. Everybody had respect, for each other. And it was an honor to be, a representative or a senator, or, to represent the people of the United States. And now it's like, oh, it's not a democracy. It's socialist and socialism. And everybody's always just trying to change everything instead of just being consistent and just keep moving forward, like the message was originally, keep moving forward. Why would you want to go back? I grew up in the 80s. I grew up in the 80s. Yeah, I grew up in the 80s, and we were actually all getting along, except for, some of the things that were going on in California with supposedly, Reagan, like putting drugs into, the neighborhoods and things like that. So, but other than that, like, everybody was getting along, everybody had respect, everybody had to earn their education and be informed, or you would not even be allowed to talk, much less be allowed to represent a group of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair perspective, and I appreciate that perspective on that. I think that we push back constantly. That's what Anthony and I have made the commitment to do, is to push back against misinformation, and it's difficult because when you're fed misinformation over and over and over and over and over again, you're just led to believe that it's the truth. So it becomes problematic. But I appreciate you jumping in and sharing your perspective.
Sorry, I actually pressed the button on accident, but
it's all good.
I was trying to reply to someone, but hey, why not?
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. You have a good night.
Thank you too.
All right, bye. Yeah, I mean, I know we talk about that all the time, right?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know what I just learned
What
today?
would you learn?
You, I did. This is a weird TikTok ism. If you get a follower while you're on a live, you get coins.
I noticed that too. I noticed that too. And
I
again,
didn't know it was even a thing because sometimes I'm like, I didn't say anything witty or clever. How did I get? Obviously, it's just pennies, right? And then today, I was on Crow and Arrows live, and he was like, "Oh, every time you get a follower, you get like 2 coins or something random like that, right?" So,
I learned that, and then and once again, we are participating in the strike.
yeah,
Apologies again. I was desperate to make sure that it
right.
was not
But
turned off tonight, and I did my best. And I don't know what the hell's going on, but again, no gifts, please.
yeah, even if it is turned on and you get followers, it shows up anyway. So it's kind of like that's
Hard,
frustrating,
hard to tell. Yeah, that
right?
makes sense. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
That makes
So
that makes
just
sense. I appreciate that.
putting
Thank you,
your
brother.
putting your mind at ease a little.
Appreciate that, man. George, good evening.
Good evening. How's it going?
Very well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Doing okay. I just wanted to piggyback off of something that was said a minute ago about the impeachment vote from
Okay.
yesterday.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to figure out how someone is how an elected congressman could be hiding. And it was known that he was in the hospital, had surgery, and could it be that they just miscounted their vote and the possibilities of how the vote could go?
Well, that's part of it. So, there's a term in Congress. It's called whipping the vote, and there's a particular position within each party. So there's a minority whip and a majority whip, and it's their responsibility to count votes, literally. And I think the Republicans maybe underestimated. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but everybody who's a registered member of Congress with the ability to come to vote, they have their voting card and they can vote. So again, it's just more noise. People on the right trying to make excuses for their inadequacies.
Oh yeah, well that's what I figured. Because Al Green is my congressman from Texas.
He's great.
Yeah, yeah, we all love him here, and so we were glad to see him able to go and cast his vote.
Yeah, yeah, it was great, and I'm glad he did it. I'm really glad he did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's all I was wanting to say. I was just
Thank you,
want.
George.
All right, appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right, bye. So it does look officially, the Senate Republicans just blocked the bipartisan border deal again. Not surprising. Um, there is probably going to be, what I've heard is that Chuck Schumer is going to pull out the border package, introduce legislation regarding Ukraine and Israel funding, and see where that goes. That's not going to fly either. But the timing
Yeah.
is interesting to me because we know that Republicans are not interested in supporting Ukraine, even though they did it during the Trump administration. Coincidentally, there happens to be a former Fox talking head who happens to be in Russia currently and who happens to be preparing for an interview with one Vladimir Putin. Want to take a guess who that might be, Anthony?
Would that be the multi-millionaire, I inherited everything without having to work for anything, Tucker Carlson?
You are correct. He reminds me of somebody that in the 80s, I'm not sure how old he is, but reminds me of somebody in the 80s who would have worn like 6 different Izod polo shirts with the multiple collars and had them all popped,
Okay, but hold on. Let's
right?
have a little. I think confession is good for the soul.
Uh-oh.
I did wear penny loafers with 501s cuffed and white socks like John Cougar Mellencamp, and
That's different.
on occasion I would have an Oxford with an Izod or a faux Zod underneath, just because there's photos out there, there is evidence, so I wanted
Fair
to get
enough.
ahead of it
Okay.
before people accused me of being an owner of the Preppy Manual, which I have on one of my bookshelves somewhere
Okay,
still.
fair enough.
So
Since it's full disclosure,
yeah, yeah.
when I was a junior in high school, I was just under 6 feet tall and I weighed 150 pounds.
God.
And I had a gigantic, big, bushy head of hair that I would pull back into a ponytail. And I used to wear AC/DC and Led Zeppelin T-shirts, and I tied a bandana around my thigh with my ripped jeans, wore my Converse, and rode my motorcycle to school. And I thought I was cool as shit, and I wasn't.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't.
I
Yeah.
mean, Now we'll have to have a special live where we talk about alpha males and hair metal.
Okay, I'm down.
Okay.
And when I continue my story, when I didn't have my hair in a ponytail, it was like this. So at 150 pounds, I was like a broom or like a mop. It was like, literally, you could tip me over and like you could scrub in the corner, and I would clean whatever you needed cleaning. It was interesting. Yeah, it was quite a day.
It would have been fun to see you competitive skiing with that kind of hair.
We didn't wear helmets then, so I had to have a bandana and
Right.
goggles. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, why would
Gigi,
you want to wear a helmet while going down the snow?
Totally. Gigi, how are you?
I am well.
What's on your mind tonight, Gigi? Gigi? Gigi, is there something you'd like to discuss?
Whose daughter worked for Kamala Harris.
Gigi going once? Gigi going twice? Good night, Gigi. Sorry. Okay.
That was weird. I definitely heard a conversation in the back mispronouncing Kamala Harris.
Me too.
I'm
Vsauce.
sure that was on purpose.
Good evening tonight. How are you?
Hey, doing pretty good here. So
Excellent.
I'm an independent voter, and I'm honestly looking for perspective on a lot of different things. And been watching some of your live streams, and you seem like you're very knowledgeable. Someone that can actually provide something of some facts that I could go
We'll
check
try.
on.
We'll
So
try.
I
What's on your
saw.
mind?
So I've been getting into, I wouldn't call them debates really, but just talking with other independent voters and people on both sides about this Amendment 14, Section 3. And is it just his speech that they're using, that they're trying to say that that's how he incited the insurrection?
No.
Is there something else? Is there another like clip or tweak that he did, or is it just that speech mostly?
It's not the speech. It's a combination of a whole bunch of things. So if we were to back up, would you agree that context in general matters? Would you agree that context matters?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we have to go back before the election. So all summer long, if you recall, what was Donald Trump saying about the election?
Stolen votes, right? Fraud.
Right. He was saying the only way he was going to lose, right, is if the Democrats stole it. You remember
Yep.
those conversations? So all summer long, he is fomenting, riling up his base to think that if he loses the election, it's got to be rigged. So then we get up to the election, and that message continued. And then during the election, of course, we know that. And then after the election, he was communicating with his base that it was rigged, that it was rigged, that it was rigged. So again, they're all fired up. In December, he sends out a tweet, "Come to Washington on January 6th is going to be wild." So do you remember what the name of the rally in DC was that day?
I don't, to be honest.
It's called Stop the Steal, right?
Oh, okay, I remember that now. Yeah.
Okay, so we know the election wasn't stolen. We know it was a free and fair election. We know that Joe Biden won, was a legitimately elected president of the United States. The courts confirmed that. His own staff, his own cabinet, his own family, his own attorney general, Republican legislators across the country, all of that. We know that he didn't lose. We have testimony in the indictments that he knows that he didn't lose, right? But yet he continued with that message because, from my perspective, it was his ego. So we look at all those events leading up to that day. He goes on stage. He then says, peacefully, yes, but he also says, fight like hell. If you don't fight, you're going to lose your country. So imagine the mindset of a voter who supported Trump. All summer long, they're being fed that the only way he'll lose an election is if it's rigged. On that, so that's the fuse. And then we get to January 6th. He says, if you don't fight, you're going to lose your country. I'll go to the Capitol with you. And then the bomb went off. So that would be engaging in insurrection, meaning that he fomented his provoking language, the suggestions that he made all through that summer. So that's, by definition, an insurrection is a violent act or uprising against a government or authority. So that's what
Okay.
it comes down to. So it's not just his speech; it's a combination of things.
And I was confused because the argument that I was hearing from some of my conservative friends, they were saying that he never directly incited it. So is that why they haven't actually charged him for insurrection? They're trying to charge him for other things then?
Right, but again, nobody from the Civil War was ever charged with insurrection. So that's kind of it's a bit of a people try to stand on that and use it as an argument, but even the people who literally, the Civil War, the Confederacy, that was an insurrection. Nobody was charged there. So there's no requirement to be charged. It's not in the 14th Amendment. There's no trigger. So I guess the interpretation has to come down from the Supreme Court as to whether or not he's an officer of the country, as opposed to whether or not he engaged in insurrection, because two courts have already decided that.
Isn't the Supreme Court supposed to be meeting on that pretty soon and deciding on that?
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
I hear oral arguments tomorrow.
Got it. Cool,
So
man.
that's
Well, thanks
that's
for.
gonna that. Oh yeah, I mean, again, that's kind of where the it'd be. It's. I want to encourage you to remain on the. It sounds like you're willing to hear. So focus on the facts. Try to avoid the innuendo of the suggestion. The 14th Amendment does not require a conviction. Congress, according to the 14th Amendment, does not need to pass a law. It's literally interpretation. So that's where we're at.
Got it, man. Yeah, I appreciate you being so cordial too. I've been on some other live streams and I've tried to, engage like this, but usually anytime I question anything, they assume that I'm a MAGA guy and then they start jumping on me and attacking me. So I usually
Oh,
leave
good,
those
man.
ones pretty quick. But yeah, this was good. I actually learned
Thanks.
something here. So
Happy to help. Appreciate that, brother. Thanks a lot.
cool, man. Thanks.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Bye. So once again, it's really important from a context perspective. This is going to be settled. The Supreme Court's got to make a decision on this, and I don't know how anybody could realistically and sincerely look at that day and say that it was anything other than an insurrection. Your thoughts on that, Anthony?
Well, as I was discussing with my colleague today, there are a bunch of people that think they understand the Second Amendment yet have no clue as to the structure of 18th century English. So to them, I would say, unless you're an English lit major with a master's or PhD in English lit, you actually don't know what the Second Amendment says. And then when I bring up that the Second Amendment was an appeasement to slave owners, and that actually ended up being its sole purpose, they seem to not know that part either, right? They don't seem to understand James Madison and the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists, right? On and on. What is a comma? What is not a comma? What is a comma used? How to diagram a sentence? I could go on, but I digress. I think that this really is going to hem in the Supreme Court, especially considering that immunity is a question on the table. And now they are really stuck. And by they, I mean the conservative justices. They are really stuck. And I have a funny feeling that Justice Roberts will be, once again, that swing vote. I think he is also very concerned about his legacy on this court. And I think he's recognized in some of his recent decisions that one can turn the page and one can resurrect their own history. So I suspect that they're not going to be supportive of Trump, and that they will look at what the other court said, and I think they will have to, on its face, if they are going to be actual textualists, right? If they're going to literally be like evangelical Christians that take the word of, in quotes, God as the word of God, despite their selective editing, not reading ancient Greek or understanding ancient Greek. Again, I digress. I think these two court decisions have hemmed them in, and they're going to have to go against their better nature, which would be to indeed disagree that Trump had been a part of an insurrection. Because with immunity quickly following, I've really thought about this since that immunity case popped up, that how can they claim to be what they claim to be and then literally ignore Section 3 of the 14th Amendment? That would be a spectacular act of hypocrisy, right? Because they're so purists about being textualists, right?
True.
And so, this will be the test. But look, I'm also in this case, I'm trying to be an optimist, which is not in my normal nature. I'm pretty much a pessimist.
So are you saying you think that the Supreme Court will rule in favor of Colorado?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. I used to be like, no way in hell will they, but now I'm sort of split. I think there are legal arguments that can be obviously made in one direction. I think there can be legal arguments made in the other direction too.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly
Yeah.
sure how legitimate they are, but the question as to whether or not, really what it's going to come down to is whether or not the Supreme Court believes that the President of the United States is considered an officer. And
Yes.
again, if the language is interesting. It says no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United
Right.
States or under any state who have been previously taken an oath. So holding any office.
And
Now,
taking an oath.
exactly. So if you hold an office, are you not an officer?
Yeah.
Right. So that
Yeah.
again we'll see. This is. I mean, it's interesting, but you're absolutely right. So just as a reminder to folks, so we'll piggyback on the immunity piece. The request will be for what's called writ of certiorari, I think it is.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And they only need 4 people to agree, 4 justices to agree to hear it. So let's assume that if we look at the division in the court, we've got Ketanji Brown Jackson, we've got Sotomayor and Kagan. So we've got those 3 that are liberal justices. So the question then becomes: Does Justice Roberts go to a Kavanaugh or to an Amy Boney Carrot and say, "Look, we don't want to touch this. We don't want to touch this," and then they don't have their 4, and then ultimately they're going to need 5 as the majority. You might be right. It's really interesting. You might be right. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
It'll be Justice and Kavanaugh if it's any of them.
Probably true. It's probably true. I just like saying Amy Boney Carrot. I just like saying it.
I by the way, I've never heard that. So
I'm gonna make it
I don't know how I've missed that. Yeah, but that should be at least a bumper sticker.
Good evening, Brian. How are you tonight? Brian.
Hey, I'm well. I didn't mean to click on. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I got you. No problem. Thanks a lot.
But Brian, your voice is perfect for lives and radio. That was
True.
definitely like announcer voice. Dude, get back up here.
It's so true. So true. Good evening, sir. It's been a minute.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
We're well.
Uh-oh.
How are you doing?
Did he just throw out gentlemen? I don't know how I feel.
I don't know. What he's talking about. What's up, man?
Everybody younger than me is a gentleman.
Wow. Cool.
Whew. All
Well,
right.
I'm 65. I don't know what you guys are.
I'm 29.
Yeah,
Again.
I kind of figured that.
I just turned 30.
I kind of figured that. So in listening to what you guys were saying, in regards to the immunity, I don't think they're going to take the case of immunity. They're just
I
going
agree.
to.
I agree.
They're going to bypass it.
I
In
agree.
regards to the Colorado case, insurrection or participate in rebellion, aid and comfort.
Right.
Let's throw out the insurrection. He participated in the rebellion.
Yeah.
He also threw out aid and comfort.
Yeah. So
By saying,
the language is engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or aiding and abetting, basically.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Or not
Yeah.
aiding and abetting, aid and comfort.
You're right. Aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. That's right.
Right, and he's done the aid and comfort. I'm going to
Yeah.
pardon you. I'm going to pardon you. You guys
Right.
are patriots. We love
Good point.
you.
Good point.
You're political hostages.
Good point.
All these things. So let's say they say, well, he didn't do the insurrection, but he did do rebellion, aid, and comfort. Then they should side with Colorado to keep him off the ballot.
Yeah, I mean,
three out of 4.
like Anthony said, and you're right, attacking. I think that the challenge is that we don't have a lot of trust in our judiciary, and I think it's legitimate. But to his point, they claim to be textualists. They especially Scalia. I mean, he has gone on the record making that claim. And then there's still a question as to whether or not Clarence Thomas will recuse. So there's still that question.
Yeah. I mean,
we
they're
don't know.
not
We
very
don't know.
they're not very ethical on their aspects of doing things proper now, are they?
No, they're not.
And so the thing is, because you had and with Colorado, you had the Supreme Court of Colorado and the District Court also saying that he did participate in insurrection.
Correct.
So even though the District Court said he should still remain on the ballot, but he did participate in the insurrection and laid it out, and then the Supreme Court of Colorado agreed with everything except for he should not remain on the ballot, and they stayed their decision.
Correct.
So I don't see how the United States Supreme Court can say both district and Colorado Supreme Court could be wrong on the insurrection part. Now,
Yeah, I mean, and even in the dissent, you're right, attacking. Even in the dissent from the conservative judges on the Supreme Court in Colorado, they didn't question the insurrection claim. Their only argument was whether or not he was considered an
due
officer.
process.
And whether or not they had sufficient due process. Those two elements.
Right.
But he
Yeah,
did have due
exactly.
process.
Yeah,
He did.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then, like right now, with him losing the presidential immunity, I think Judge Chuckin should go ahead and reapply and put him back on the calendar.
She can't yet
Because
until Monday.
right, he has to yeah, until Monday. But I think she should, and then just proceed with what needs to be taken care of, and then let the Supreme Court rule on something after there's a conviction.
Yeah, so the way I understood it is that if he requests, and it was again from what I've read the ruling twice, and it's a lot of legalese, but I think I understand most of it. But the way that they worded the appeal process, because they know his game, like they
Yeah.
understand that all he wants to do is delay everything. So they said,
Exactly.
obviously you have a right to appeal, but if you appeal to the DC circuit, the en banc, the entire DC circuit, as opposed to just the panel, then the
Right.
clock starts again, and Judge Chutkin then can proceed. If he proceeds with his appeal to the Supreme Court, then the stay remains in place until they decide.
Mm. Yeah, well, we all know that's Donald Trump's main
That's his
game
game.
is delay, delay, delay.
Agreed. That's
Yep.
his game.
All right,
That's his game.
all right,
Thank
guys.
you, brother.
Thanks for letting me up. I'll be
Good,
listening.
good talking to you, man. See you later.
You too. All right, guys.
Be well. Oh, cool. There's Dave. I want to talk to him about that. I want to make sure I got that right. Did I get that right? My description on that, the way the appeal is supposed to go, the way the language was written,
Which one? You talked about a lot of it.
the immunity side.
Oh, the immunity side? Yeah. Basically, what
Okay.
they told him is you have until Monday to make a choice, and you can go A or you can go B. And
right.
if you
So-
don't, then the case can continue. I.e.,
Eh.
the appeal goes forward, but they can continue to prep.
Right. So it's the en banc is the term, correct?
Yes, en banc,
Okay.
meaning meaning that's the entire, not just a panel of three, but the entire court, all 12 judges. I think there are in there.
And
Yeah.
did you? I'm assuming you read through it. Did you read through the
I read through.
the,
I read through it. Yeah, I read through some of it. Truthfully, I didn't have a chance. I have trial after trial after trial right now, but I did read some of it, and I found it very interesting, mostly because of the findings. And they found a couple of they basically they used precedent. What they said was, if Nixon was immune, why was he pardoned? If Clinton was immune, why did he have a deal? Why did he make a deal not to be tried for perjury?
interesting.
I mean, there is some precedent out there for everything, So they were looking at it and they were saying, this isn't, and they did this for a very specific reason. They did this to make the appeal as unappealable as possible. That's basically it. What we're
Right.
talking about now, this whole thing with the immunity, what we're talking about now is simply this: do we have a legitimate court or don't we? There is
Right.
absolutely no way that anyone, based upon the legal history, based upon the history of this country, based upon the fact this country was founded on the idea that we don't have a king, that
Right.
no one is above the law ever.
Right.
So that's the question: whether those whether those six conservative judges are actually going to live up to the idea of what a conservative is, which is
So
someone.
if you were a
Well, go
betting
ahead.
man, if you were a betting man, Dave, I think are
hmm
we all three of us in agreement that they're not going to take the immunity case at all?
I, I I think
Yeah.
that I think they're likely not going to take it, or they may punt. I think there's a
Okay.
chance they may punt in order to take their time in their ultimate decision for the purpose of basically getting past the election. I'm not
Wow.
sure what they could do that, and then ultimately the issue becomes moot, and they don't have to decide. And now you have one precedent in the federal circuit, and that would I could see them doing it.
Interesting.
I see that I think that, and this is there's only one reason I think that, because the decision, the recent Texas decision, the one where the court overturned Texas and said, Texas, you got to take the stuff down, the feds have it, wasn't a 9-0 decision. That was
Hmm.
a 5-4 decision on a very basic 200-year-old precedent regarding the supremacy of the federal government over state governments and the federal government's exclusive jurisdiction over issues regarding the border. And they and four judges on that court said, no, we don't think so.
Wow. And is it true that the large majority of Supreme Court cases that are decided are 9-0?
No, that's not true. Absolutely not. No,
Where did
that
I
is
read that?
absolutely not. I don't
When I
know.
read
That hasn't
when I
been
read that.
that hasn't been true for a very long time.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
Maybe historically.
Perhaps historically, but not recently. The
Okay.
divide, the political divide on the Supreme Court, a court that shouldn't have political divides.
Right.
Really, the whole point
Right.
of it is you're not supposed to be political. You're supposed to rule on the law. But the political
Right.
divide on this court is so vast, and you could start with Scalia. Scalia was the one who started it. Fuck him and his bones. I cannot stand the man.
Right.
His whole I'm a textualist, but what he did, what the addendum to that is when it suits me,
Sure.
and you could read his decisions, and it's like, yeah, I'm a textualist when it suits me.
Right.
And then
Right.
all of the other textualists that claim they're textualists that came after him are the same way.
Right.
I'm a textualist when it suits me.
Right. So
So
last question I have for you in regards to the 14th. What do you think they're going to
mhm.
decide on that? What do you think they're going to decide on that?
I think 75% chance they're going to let him stay on the ballot.
Interesting.
75% chance. I think. And again, it's not necessarily a question of law. I think it's a question of whether that's more of a self-preservation question. I think that a lot of the Republicans have gone on the record. Congressional Republicans got on the record and said, "Look, we didn't impeach the motherfucker because we were scared of the people who would go after us if we did."
Hmm.
A lot of them went on the record with that. I think that the Supremes see the same thing. I think they're looking out for their own ass, and they're thinking these people know where we live.
Wow, man.
I really,
That's just
I'm not kidding you. I mean,
no.
if I were,
Yeah. Hmm.
if I were a judge sitting anywhere, if I were a judge, this would not be a very difficult decision. Yes, he committed insurrection. If I were a judge that didn't know anything else, I would still do the same thing. Why? Because of the way that appeals work. The way
Sure.
appeals work is that the lowest court, the original trial court, makes the factual findings. And then, unless there's something huge, all the appellate courts, all they do is rule on the points of law. That appellate court ruled that, yes, he committed an insurrection. And then they threaded that needle because I believe that judge didn't want to make the decision and wanted to punt it up to the appellate courts. And she
Right.
said, but he's technically not an officer, so it doesn't apply to him. And
I
then
think that
the
makes sense.
the intermediate Colorado appellate court said, no, you're wrong. Then the Colorado Supreme Court says, no, you're wrong. And I don't see how anybody could rule that the president is not an
An
officer.
officer. I
It
know.
makes no fucking sense.
You're right. You're right. Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that breakdown. Right at the right time. Good luck with your trials, dude. Sounds like you got a busy
Ah,
week. Keep us
yeah,
posted.
All right. Good.
All right. Have a good night,
Enjoy.
man.
You
Be
too.
well. See
Bye
you
bye.
later. All right. Bye.
Bye.
It's an interesting take, and I respect that opinion. I like that. I mean, I like the way he framed that. I'm back and forth now. I'm gonna have to chew on it. No gifts, please, friends. We are participating in the strike. Would appreciate if you would like and share the live, though. Let's try to drive some more traffic to FYP. Really, really appreciate that. If you want to support myself and or Anthony, there is a Cash App in my bio, and a reminder: the one and only link in my bio that I built myself. Links to my YouTube, which links to my YouTube channel, and all of our lives over the last 2 weeks are all posted up there. So if you want to enjoy yourself, if you're bored and you need more facts than Anthony, you need more Zone of Truth, that's where you can find it.
Funnel of truth.
That's right, the funnel of truth. I like that even better. Reminds me of the old days. Anyway, Mr. D.
I can neither confirm nor deny the presence of any plastic devices used whilst consuming adult beverages.
Me neither. Is it Mr. Deist or Mr. Deist?
Just whatever. Either way matters, or doesn't matter. So
Okay.
I have a kind of off-topic question for you, but I got to preference it with a little bit of background.
Okay.
So I live in Missouri, a little bit outside of Kansas City, and we only have Republicans running for the Secretary of State. And one of these people, her name is like Valentine Gomez, released a video of her with a homemade flamethrower burning books. So I guess my question to you, and I'm a progressive, never in my life have I been triggered by something so much that I want to light it on fire. So have you ever been, I guess, triggered or upset with a political issue or maybe even non-political issue, so much so that you would light it on fire?
Figuratively speaking, I think the assault on women's rights and the rights of marginalized communities is something that just, yeah, I would light that on fire figuratively.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to ask because you see them do it all the time with like random stuff. I remember when they did the whole Bud Light boycott, and they were like
whatever.
using the
Yeah.
guns to shoot up cases of Bud Light. And it's like I've never gotten to the point where I was so upset at something that I would light it on fire or shoot
Yeah.
it up. It's
Well, let's
just
not use
weird
that. Let's
to
not
me.
use that word. Let's not use that word. But yeah, I know. I understand. I mean, there are issues that divide us, and those things. I mean, for me, it's all about human rights. Human rights every day, all day.
Yeah.
All right. That's just what I wanted to ask. I won't take any more of your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think I've done anything performative like
Yeah, I mean,
in
I
that
would never do that.
manner.
I would never do that
Right?
anyway. I mean, it's just not. I mean, I don't roll that way. I would rather go to a rally and, you know,
Yeah. I'm too cheap to burn Jordans or Air Force
Yeah.
Ones or something. Like come on, shoes are expensive.
You knocked on the door, my friend. What's
I
on
did
your mind?
knock. Hello, first of all, let me do morning first. Everybody, Cash App is in his bio and up on the thing. Please do not gift them or any of the guests because he is doing CoinCot. He cannot turn off the gifting for some reason. It's not working.
I don't know what's going on. I have no idea what's going on there. And you can't do it when you're in the live either, which is the
I
strangest
know.
thing. So.
Please no caps. They're for mods only. And if you spew hate speech or any of this misinformation over and over again, we will mod and block. We will mute and block you.
Indeed.
I wanted to tell you about Bud Light. Did you happen to see that Trump today Truth Socialed out his support of Bud Light, saying that Anheuser-Busch is not a woke company and that Bud Light just made a mistake?
Wow.
You know why? Because the head of Bud Light is throwing a support thing for him for, to raise money.
Of course they
Yeah,
are.
because,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
okay, so Jared Kushner made, what, $2 billion, was that right? It's the B,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. for the B.
And she made $6.5 million working at the White House.
Yeah, something
So
like that.
Trump's super PAC, you guys, all y'all down there who send him your money, you paid for her attorney's fees,
Correct.
$2.3 million.
50 million total to legal fees.
Oh, no, I mean for Ivanka Trump. They
Oh yeah,
pay
I'm just saying in general, $50 million of
yeah,
donations,
it's ridiculous
campaign
because
donations for legal fees. Yeah,
because
yeah,
somebody who made $2 billion
yeah.
needs your guys' money.
I know, that's right.
Yeah, but I thought it was very funny. He brought up Bud Light, and yeah, he truthed out today that Bud Light is no longer a woke company.
That's right. Of course not. Nikki is a mod of mine. Be kind to Nikki, or she will send you packing. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you.
I will.
Yeah.
I will. And I'm not in the mood today, so if y'all mess with me, I'll just go send you packing anyway.
Thanks, pal.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Later.
Anthony, stay dry. It's raining in my brother's house.
Okay. Yeah,
Like-
I can see. I'm looking outside. I know it's coming. So.
Yeah, it's coming. It's like vertical. It's horizontal rain. It's coming in through his side something. He duct taped it. He's like, we're gonna duct tape. I'm like, that doesn't work. It just redirects water.
Yeah.
Tell him to stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you,
All right.
Nikki.
Stop gifting people.
Yes, please stop gifting. Thank you very much.
You're
Bye. Yeah, we don't spend enough time necessarily talking, and I want to reset the conversation about the New York trial, because that case with Alvin Bragg, that's not about hush money. That's about election interference. That's what that case is about.
Correct.
And he's been very specific about that. It's the media that said it's about hush money. The reason it's about election interference because the money was paid to keep the story quiet. The National Enquirer was in cahoots on that whole thing. So that's what that case is about. It's about election interference. Specifically that they did not want that story to be released prior to the election. That's what that case is about. And he's going to be found guilty there too, because it's paper trail. It's just blatantly obvious. So
Yep.
we should get like a Super Bowl board like they do with those kinds of things, and start to place bets as to how much the fine is going to be in the civil fraud case, and spin the wheel.
I was thinking there's so much stuff. Could we not actually have bingo?
Yeah.
Right? Like a bingo
Should.
style? Right?
I did a video when probably within the first 3 or 4 months that I started on this app, that I played the bingo game. Basically, I was monitoring comments, and every time a comment would come up, I would check it off. It's pretty funny, actually. It was pretty funny.
Right?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. We should do that. I need help with the design, though. CK1, how are you tonight?
I'm good, Pax. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. What's on your mind?
Once again, I was here. I talked to you the other night, and I was, again, cooking and doing the same thing for the kids.
Good for you,
Something that Nikki said about the whole Bud Light deal with Trump. Do you know who Dana White is, by any chance?
UFC, that guy. Yeah.
Correct. I'm a big UFC fan, not a big Dana White supporter. That's a whole different conversation. But I'm a big fan of the UFC. I've been watching since '93 when he first started, before the Dana White days. And back in October, he made a deal with Bud Light. They reached out to him, and they said he got $100 million deal. You can look it up if you want.
We believe you.
I actually just
no reason to question it.
Yeah. So no, I saw you kind of lean, and I thought you were looking it up. But you can fact check me if you want. But back in October, Bud Light made a deal with the UFC for $100 million for 6 years. And as you know, Dana White and Trump are buddies.
They are.
And Dana White is also good friends with Kid Rock, Don Bongino. They actually go to fights. Whenever there is a big fight, like a big name fight, Trump usually shows up and he sits ringside there next to Dana White. Kid Rock is always there. So do you remember just a few months ago when what's his name? Kid Rock was spotted with a Bud Light can somewhere?
Yes, I do.
That was right around the time that Dana White sealed that deal with Bud Light.
That's right. That makes sense. I mean, of course, after he shot it up with his AR, shot up the 12-pack of yeah. That was a tough guy move. Total tough guy.
So that is the reason. And I recently saw an interview with I think Dana White was with Theo Vaughn in his podcast, and which I like. I do like Theo Vaughn. He's I think he's hilarious. Um, he can be a little abrasive at times, but I think that's how his comedy is. But he actually talks about all the good things that the Bud Light has done, how it employs what is it, 65,000 people, how
Something like that. Yeah.
right, how the it invests about $700 million a year in farmers because of all the grains and the barley and whatever they use to make beer. Um, so here he is saying all these great things about Bud Light, all because he made a deal with, they're a sponsor now, so he has to kiss their ass now.
Of course.
Right. None
Of
of that was
course.
said,
Yeah.
when the whole, and one thing I heard in that interview is that, and I was completely unaware of this until Dana White said it, the same time that Bud Light gave that, I always forget her name, that the whole deal with Bud Light can, what's her name?
Dylan Mulvaney.
Yes. There were also, Bud Light made cans for 2,500 other influencers. It wasn't just her.
I know. That never gets talked about, though.
I had no clue.
Yep.
So Dana White actually brings that up. So for once, I was in agreement with Dana White, because he actually kind of, for his own benefit, of course, $100 million
Right.
we're talking.
Right. Yeah. It was
So
only
look-
it was
look
only
it up.
one can, and by the way, they only made one can for Dylan Mulvaney, and it turned into this whole big nonsense thing. But whatever.
Right. So I just wanted to, kind of piggyback off what Nikki was saying. It's also something that Anthony was saying about the pew-pewing the cans and all that.
Yeah.
Dana White actually kind of took a jab at Kid Rock, but I don't think he meant it directly. But he also said something about he's like, whatever you stand, if you want to be an idiot and pew-pew all these cans, I think that's silly. I'm like, oh, now it's silly because
It's
Bud
an
Light
easy
is on your
target.
side now.
It's an easy
Right.
target. Kid Rock's an easy target. But thank you, bro.
So-
I appreciate that perspective. That's a good color on that whole story. It's interesting. Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
it, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thank
all right,
you.
brother. Yeah, thanks for having me again. Gotta feed these kids again.
You got it, man. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Be well.
I'm just now looking at the story. What's interesting, well, one, learning two things at once is always fun. Apparently, in the beginning of the UFC, Bud Light was their original partner.
Yeah.
So Dana White's talking about, more than 15 years ago, how that started and that they're proud to be in business again. Also, really super important, Magga. It's now a Bavarian owned entity. It is no longer a US owned business. So for every dollar you spend purchasing any of the beverages that company produces, you help fund socialism. I'd like to congratulate you
Well
on
done.
on becoming a part of the new way of thinking, and for supporting a woke company as large as AB InBev and all of the beverages they choose. And by the way, if you decide to go with another beer, you may want to look at all the labels they own, because you may be stuck with water when all is said and done. That company owns multiple labels across all types of adult beverages. So good luck, stay woke, and stay thirsty, my friends.
And on Anheuser-Busch, my father used to work for Anheuser-Busch back in the day, long time ago. Something regarding Kid Rock.
Yes.
And I need to bring this up. So when Led Zeppelin, because I'm the biggest Led Zeppelin fan in the world. So fight me, seriously. Anyway, when they did the Kennedy Center honors that Jack Black hosted, which was awesome, but Kid Rock did Ramble On. So I have to erase that from my memory. So consider it erased. It's done. I have to
The best Led Zeppelin cover ever is Ann and Nancy Wilson's covers.
They did Stairway at that same event.
I mean, honestly, it's and they've done other songs. It's some of the best covers you will ever hear of Zeppelin. right? I mean,
Battle of Evermore is on the single soundtrack.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Oh my
So,
God. Okay.
yes.
What may be the best early 90s or 90s soundtrack period is from the movie Singles.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Bridget Fonda, right?
Yes.
Yes. I had such a crush on her. Oh my goodness gracious.
Did we all not?
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Really good point. Yeah. Hey, Gregory, how are you? Are you driving, Gregory?
Oh, I'm sorry. I hit it on accident.
It's all right, got you, bro. No worries. Hit it on accident. Is it on accident or by accident? Interesting. I think it depends on where in the country you are. Keep it real.
Yeah.
How are you tonight? Keep it real. Hello. Keep it real. Hello. Keep it real.
I think we're in somebody's back pocket, and I don't want to be there.
Keep it real. Going once. Keep it real. Going twice. Keep it real is sold. Yeah, I think it was a butt dial. I think it totally was a butt dial. I agree. Pocket dial, butt dial. What's up, brother? How are you?
Hey, what's going on? Okay, let's get
Jaffs, Anthony Jaffs.
Hey, what's up, Anthony?
What's up, dude?
Let's get to the real important question. What's the word on the street about Jarren Duran and the Red Sox this summer?
I can't shift my focus just yet. I have to wait till truck day, which is next week.
Okay. All right. I just figured because he's one of my big sleepers. I'm in a big fantasy baseball league, so that's
okay. Yeah, me too. And it's like, yeah, I kind of want my listen. I'll say this right here. I'm not going to turn this into baseball talk, but when you grow up a Red Sox fan and they ruin your childhood every single year, I can't say much. I can't complain. Four World Series in 20 years. I would have signed up for one. Funny story. In 2004, my boys were little. My oldest was 2, and his brother was a year. And it was like midnight when they beat the Cardinals to win their first World Series. I woke them both up, and I plopped them down in front of the TV, and I said, "You're going to watch this just in case."
Yeah. that was the summer that I first visited Fenway. I think I told you. And then I went back in 2007, and you guys won it again.
Damn right we did. Damn right we did.
But yeah. And what Anthony was saying earlier about, you guys were talking about the Colorado decision and about how they are just going to say, yeah, that it's upheld. I think I've said this on this live before. I don't think they're going to mess with it because of states' rights and the Dobbs decision.
Interesting.
Because as soon as they go in to Colorado and then they say, well, this, you can't rule on that. And if they overturn it, what does that do to states' rights? And what does that do to the Dobbs decision?
Interesting perspective. Yeah, I mean, there's elements. Again, this is the needle that they have to thread. To Dave's point earlier, this is kind of the needle that they have to thread. There's so much to consider. So much to consider. Yeah. Everybody, please like and share the live. Let's try to drive some more traffic to FYP, and you can comment in the chat, MAGA, all the things that trigger MAGA. Let's try to get some more folks in here because I want to have this conversation tonight. I really, really do. I really do.
Yeah. It's just so ridiculous how they the only amendment they know is the Second Amendment and the free speech part of the First. That's it.
Well, it seems like it, and we have conversations a lot with people who claim to be constitutionalists, and we'll ask them questions about, what's required to get a new amendment on the Constitution. Can the Constitution be amended? What was the original deal about amending the Constitution? It was originally designed to be amended every 19 years.
Exactly. A living document.
Exactly. So that's why it's important. Again, as an opportunity for some education, it's a sincere question. I want to know. So Oh, that's why.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, you know what I mean? You could also say, well, then, if not the 14th, what about the 22nd Amendment?
Correct. Correct.
You
But
know?
what about the 19th Amendment, which people?
Yeah. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
like, when will it be enough for MAGA to be like, okay, this is the line of demarcation. This is the line.
Yeah.
When will it be enough?
I agree.
Because if they keep pushing it down, they can't keep pushing it down the amendment line.
No, I know. I mean, again, that's the ball game, and that's why the conversation needs to happen. You know, a lot of people don't even know how government works or what the process is, or, you know, Anthony and I were texting earlier about, do people understand the nuances within our Constitution and how it's supposed to work, and the history of the Second Amendment, for example. And Anthony is an expert on it, and I'm glad he's here. But
Yeah.
it's just the irony about it. But I appreciate you jumping in, bro. And we'll talk to you, Aaron Duran. I'll fill you in. I'll message you. I'll message you
Okay,
when I
sounds
get my
good.
finger on the pulse. All right, buddy. See you later.
All right, you guys have a great one.
You too, man. Bye.
Bye.
We had somebody chirping. Said wanted to bring up BS talk. You said.
Hey,
you said,
hey, what's up, bro?
Hold on,
Boss,
hold on.
man. How's it going?
You said bring you up BS talk, protect children. So what's on your mind, Rick? By the way, how are you, Rick?
No, I'm saying so. Literally, okay. I'm doing well. How about you, bro?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for asking.
I mean, literally, Trump is winning in states he's not even running in, but that's cool.
What does that mean? What does it mean?
Yeah.
Winning?
So
What is?
let me ask you this.
Well, Rick, hold on.
So
Wait.
literally,
Hold on one second. Rick, hang on one second.
so
What is it? What is Rick? What does it mean when you say that
okay.
Trump is winning?
Dude,
Hold on a second. I have a question for you.
Nevada.
Something you said. Hold on. You said Trump is winning in states that he's not even on the ballot on. What does that even mean?
Yeah, Nikki Haley, like the closest. Like
Oh, I know.
literally, Trump is so boss. He won without even being on the ballot, bro.
Well, he wasn't on the ballot for the primary, and he didn't win.
Yeah,
So
okay,
he
yeah.
has
The
to, he has,
caucus
he
he's
has,
gonna own. Yeah, for sure,
yeah,
for sure.
she's not on the
Like
caucus. So
literally,
what's your point?
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so here's
No,
a
my
question for you.
point is okay.
What's more
So,
important?
oh no, no,
What's more
no.
important?
Okay, no. Let's talk about children. No, let's talk about children.
No, Rick.
Okay,
No.
let's talk about this, right?
No, Rick. You're in
Oh,
our
you don't want to
house,
talk about children?
Rick.
Oh,
Rick.
okay. You don't want to talk about children, right? Like how
Rick.
Epstein Island. Let's talk about Epstein Island. Let's talk.
Rick, it's a conversation. If you'd like to come to our house and have a conversation, you have to follow the house's rules. Like when you go to a friend's house and they ask you to take off your shoes, you take off your shoes. So right now, I'm asking you to take off your shoes. The question on the board is, what's more important, the Second Amendment or the 14th Amendment, and why? So you can answer that question, and then we can move on to your topic if you'd like. You can unmute, Rick. Rick, you can unmute. Oh, Rick, come on. Scaredy cat. What a scaredy cat. Goodness gracious.
That was interesting.
I know.
Oh, watch this. I'm going to go live. Watch. Yeah, watch it up.
Slice of Pittsburgh, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well. What's on your mind tonight?
Just what went on in New York City this past weekend with those undocumented, whatever they're called, beating up those cops. They get out of jail without bail. What's going on there?
Is that what happened?
Well, you didn't see the video?
I did.
What were they doing?
I hope they get charged. I hope they get thrown in jail. And if they've committed crime, get due process, throw them in jail.
How come they just let them out?
How come they just let them out? I mean, we have a judicial system in our country.
All right. If I were to beat up a cop tonight, I guarantee I'd go to jail, and they just wouldn't let me out.
How do you know? Do you have all the details of the case?
You get bailed out of jail. They just don't release you for beating up a cop.
Right. So the question I have for you, friend, do you think cops have not been beaten up before? You think this is the first time it's ever happened?
No, but they just don't let you out of jail for beating them up.
Do you have all the information on the case? Do you know all the information?
No.
Okay, so then why did you bring it up?
Well, just because I'm just saying, like, I don't understand how you can beat up a cop and it's okay.
Okay, well, it's not okay. Do you think it's okay to beat up cops? Hang on one second, Anthony. Do you think it's okay to beat up cops?
No, even if you're
Wait,
wrong.
hold on. Wait, hold on. Do you think it's okay to beat up cops?
No.
Okay, so then you want everybody on January 6th that beat up cops thrown in jail, right?
Yes.
Good. I'm glad we agree on that. Anthony, did you have something you wanted to add, brother?
Yes, I like to add these things called facts.
Thank you, sir.
At least 12 suspects were allegedly involved in last weekend's attack. This is important. Please pay attention. 6 have been arrested. 5 of those were released on bail, and the rest remain at large. 1 remains in jail because he couldn't afford bail. So they didn't get released. They were released on bail. That is a distinction worth noting. It's also worth noting there were 12 suspects. They got 6. 1 poor schlub still can't afford bail, so he, she, it, they, whatever the pronoun is in jail. So your entire premise of coming up here has now completely fallen apart. Would you like a door prize prior to your exit?
No, that's okay. You guys are always right. Have a nice night.
You too. Thank you. Good night. Well done, sir.
Yes, I'm only right because I'm literally reading I had totally forgotten about that, quite frankly, because I don't live in New York City anymore. But this is certainly not the first time a NYPD officer has had their ass handed to him. So, and it won't be the last, right?
Right. I mean, and again, MAGA and anybody on the right that wants to use that as an argument, as a reminder, as Anthony so eloquently put it, there's this thing called bail. Oh, and by the way, you know who else is out on bail right now? Donald Trump. Shocker.
I know.
That's so funny. It's just amazing how those things work. Wow.
Goose
Crazy.
and gander.
Seriously, it's so funny. Good evening. You're back. Bro.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. So let me get out of the wind here.
Okay.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Excellent. You want to answer the question that's on the board?
I think that and I'm not trying to ride a fence here, but I think that they're both equally as important for the same reason. I think that the 14th Amendment, I'm excited that this case has come up because I think it's important that the population, as I stated earlier when I had bad service, I don't know how much of it you heard, but I think it's important that the population of the country get a clear message from the judicial system as to how to define and understand and interpret the language that they may or may not understand. I think that I wouldn't necessarily call it into question and compare it to the Second Amendment. I think that, well, I guess I don't necessarily understand why you phrase the question, which one is more important, because I think they're both equally as important. But I am excited that there will be a judicial decision made. It was interesting, a couple of the gentlemen that you had up earlier shared their predictions as to whether or not the Supreme Court would pick it up. And I'm curious, because it is a federal issue, because we're talking about the eligibility to hold the highest office and arguably be the most powerful person in the world, it seems as though it would be important for the Supreme Court to take up this matter.
Yeah, they are. The oral arguments are tomorrow.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to see the outcome of that. I'm very excited for that. What? Quick question. What is your, just so I have an understanding, what is your thought process in posing the question? Which one is more important and why? What is your thought process in asking that question?
Because it is my belief that MAGA, that claims to understand the Constitution, really doesn't read past the Second Amendment. and they pick and choose what elements they would like to support. They always say it's in the Constitution, it's in the Constitution. And as a reminder, the 14th Amendment, Section 3, is also in the Constitution. So you can't claim to be a constitutionalist. You can't claim to support the Constitution and ignore things that don't work in your favor.
Okay, that's great. So, Anthony, earlier when you hopped on the live, I was listening. You'd made a comment about people having an absence of understanding of the merit to the Second Amendment and the history around the period when it was written, the intended purpose of the Second Amendment. So my question to that is, what is the conclusion that you were implying people are missing in making those statements?
All right. So first, in order to understand something that was written in the 18th century, you have to be a student of English from the 18th century. Further to that, you have to be a student of how it was the founders wrote. These were incredibly learned, intelligent men. Every single bit of punctuation was purposeful for them, right? To that, you would then have to be able to use skills which are no longer taught, which is diagramming a sentence. And I get why it's not taught. It's so damn arcane, it'll make you pull your hair out, right?
Of parsing sentences.
Right. So that's step one. But step two, one really needs to understand that the entire point of the Second Amendment is not what people think it is. It literally was to placate slave owners. That is the reason it ended up with the text that it ended up with. If you look at the arguments between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists and the letters they wrote back and forth and the discussions that they have and the Southern slave owners and their concern about uprising and needed to have armed individuals to go and track down said slaves, it's really a disgusting and despicable thing to have amended the Constitution for. There is absolutely no reason to have a Second Amendment in this day and age. I do believe what we need to do is get rid of it and rewrite it. And more to the point, the entire Constitution, every generation should be gutted and rewritten so that it keeps up with the times. And that was also something many of the founders believed. And so, you know, if you look at the Second Amendment compared to the 14th Amendment, right, there's quite a lot of space in between, right, and the writing styles. And also, people consistently claim to be textualists, but don't understand the use of a comma. So where I get incredibly frustrated is that, one, they don't seem to know the history at all behind the Second Amendment. Two, they don't understand well regulated. And three, most of the people that are thumping their chest never had the balls to sign up and join the military, in which you actually get to understand what regulated means. You get to understand what training is, what discipline is, what honor is, what resolve is. But, you know, people just want to have shit. And here's my last point on the Second Amendment. Let's just say you have everything in the state that you live in as far as pew-pews are concerned, right? And by the way, full disclosure, I provide armed security for our temple and other temples. I have various permits. I go and get qualified every single year, and I am advocate of home protection via various forms of pew-pews. Now, having said all that, I do not believe everybody needs to have one because most people aren't trained and they're incredibly dangerous, right? So what's the point of all this at the end of the day? You can have all of the pew-pews that you want, but you know, this is 2024, and I've got some news for you. By the time you notice a predator above your head, any armament has already been released, and within seconds, your existence will be eliminated from all points in time moving forward. And none of your pew pews in your storage bin, your locker, your bug out hut are going to be able to handle that type of force, nor are you going to be able to stop an Abrams tank. So, you can talk all of the stuff you want, but the Second Amendment is an amendment that has outlived its need. Its basis is disgusting on its face. And just because of the fact that there is a linkage to the appeasement, to the owning of human beings, and the appeasement to allow legal militias to round them up after they tried to free themselves, should be enough to have another amendment added to the Constitution in which we clearly redefine pew pew ownership, what well regulated means. And if you don't believe me, please go read what Scalia wrote in the Heller decision and what Scalia talked about. He very specifically pointed out that restrictions and regulations were okay. They just had to be meaningful, right? And they had to fit his narrative. He was one that supported background checks as an example, waiting periods as an example. You'll never find him arguing against those things, right? We have gone so far and jumped so many sharks since the writing of this and the ignoring of the grammatical issues within the Second Amendment that I truly believe that people actually have forgotten that we have the world's largest military. What the fuck do you think you're going to do with a closet full of things? I've got some news for you. There are only 2 T fingers, one on each hand, unless you've lost that finger and then have learned how to use another one. So that means at best, there's 2 pew pews that you can handle at once. Again, a Predator drone and an Abrams tank will eliminate that for you. So I will go on, but I'm not, because I'm just the co-host. But I hope that helps. And honestly, you might be wrong. If you want to follow me, I'm happy to share my personal information and take this offline so we're not putting people to sleep in the comment section.
Yeah, I got you. I appreciate your feedback. We're friends on TikTok.
Are we already? God dang it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't even know that.
No,
My bad.
No, you're good. So I hear what you're saying, and I understand your point as to the origin of the Second Amendment, but I think it's kind of dangerous to point to the Second Amendment as an example of the need to, as you stated, gut things like that from it, or remove them or replace them. I think that's kind of a slippery slope, because if we did that for one thing, would it not open a precedent to do it for other things? And
yes, yes, and that, I hope so.
Well, I understand. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just asking you an opposing view question, because the Constitution. I'm not a lawyer. I've never set foot in a classroom to study law, but I do have a ability to read common language and look at historical references of words. The common language of the Second Amendment versus the 14th Amendment, like the common language of those two, sure, they're up for debate. Let's talk about what they mean. Let's talk about what qualifies, what doesn't. I'm all for that. At this point, we have far more case law in the Supreme Court for the Second Amendment than we do the 14th Amendment. Is that correct?
I think that's fair to say, obviously, because the 14th Amendment has a disqualification clause, and it only applies for people who are attempting to hold office.
Right. So I'm with you there, and I know from my understanding of the cases that have been heard in the Supreme Court in reference to the Second Amendment, they have largely favored the ideology that the Second Amendment is not limited to the well-regulated militia, that it does reinforce the idea that the Second Amendment is intended for individual citizens who are law-abiding citizens in this country that operate within the purview of state laws and whatever other restriction they're subject to, that those things are acceptable. That is my understanding of the Supreme Court's stance on the Second Amendment. So again, I'm excited that we have this 14th Amendment argument to be addressed because we don't have that. And that was the reason that I asked that question of you, Anthony, for the Second Amendment, was to point to we have so much attack, or we have so much litigation in reference to the Second Amendment, but we don't have it for the 14th Amendment. And it's interesting, you made the argument, and I say interesting, it just stood out to me. It wouldn't necessarily be interesting. It's just something that stood out to me, that you made the comment that because of its age and its relevance, people could make the same argument for the 14th Amendment. That was written when, the country wasn't as unified, or when, the issue of slavery, and we can talk about all these things. You can have all these arguments that just are cherry picking ideas out of space as to what we should argue about. The reality is that, the Constitution, I believe in the Constitution. I believe it is a living, breathing document, and I believe that we abuse it. Because, and as a people, I mean, as a country, we abuse it because, like you stated, a lot of people don't read it. They don't even know what's in it. How can they believe in something that they don't understand? Because you're right. They read the first and second one, and the only reason they read that one is because somebody posted it on social media. So
Correct.
You've got an entire generation of people who don't necessarily understand those things. And the reason I'm stating all this, I'm sorry I'm monologuing.
No, it's okay.
I think it's really important to look at the fact that there's so many people. There are generations of people who don't necessarily have an education of the importance of the Constitution. I was born in the early 80s, so I've only been riding this rock a short period of time. But I had a really good education that forced me to look at things that isn't necessarily focused on otherwise. So it's important to me, but it's not necessarily important to other people my age. So for me, I think it's important that what we do is we push a narrative that people need to get educated on what they're arguing on. Just like, that's why I love you. I disagree with a lot of things that you guys talk about, but I agree with you guys in that we need to educate people on what to focus on, and not, run from one live to the other. Well, I got to run over to this other live, and I got to tell them what I just heard at that other live, and they stated it on there, so it obviously has to be true. It's like it used to be. It was on Facebook. It's got to be true.
Of course.
Here's
Facebook,
here's something I think you will find interesting, and I invite you to read this, and then I think you'll understand me better. It's to James Madison from Thomas Jefferson, 6 September 1789. So just look up 6 September 1789, Madison to Jefferson. First of all, it's a beautifully written letter. And if somebody wrote me a letter like that was my friend, I would fucking frame it because it's a really beautiful letter. But do read that and then PM me and let's have a conversation after you read it, because I'm curious to see what you think after you read that.
And you might be wrong. I think there's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand and are either willing to learn, is that the initial intention of the Constitution was to have it rewritten every 19 years. Yep. That was Jefferson's mandate. So I mean, that's not happened. And you talked about language, about how language is important. So at the end of the day, the question for you is, if the Supreme Court rules that, again, I want to make sure we're clear about something, because something you said sort of caught my eye. Because there is language specific as to what insurrection is, a violent attack against a government or authority, a violent uprising or attack against a government or authority, that language has already been defined. Words matter, definitions matter. So the judicial system in our country used the language of what the term means and applied it based on the facts of the case. So again, the interpretation is such that the language clearly states anybody who engages in insurrection and or rebellion against the government or authority, in this case, is disqualified from being president. So I'm not sure if your point is valid in this case because we've got language as to what defines insurrection, actions that support what an insurrection is, and then execution of the 14th Amendment, Section 3.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. We might disagree on this, and that's fine.
Sure.
The only argument I have a hard time getting over in my mind is that we are accusing, and I'm not standing up for him. What I am saying is the allegation is that a man who held the office was inciting the overthrow of that office that he was currently holding. And
no.
I understand he was trying to overthrow. I get it. Like I'm not trying to get lost in the weeds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get lost in the weeds. He was the president at the time.
Correct.
And the part that I have a hard time understanding, and there might be a simple explanation I just haven't heard, but the part that I'm having a hard time understanding is that this guy was in office, and the accusation is that he incited all of these people to engage in this behavior, to overthrow what was happening in the office that he was currently holding. So that's where I get lost. And I
have a breakdown for you. So it wasn't about that they were trying to overthrow the office that he was in. The actions that day were to stop the transition of power from one administration to the other. That's what the action was.
Stopping the certification of the election.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. I'm with you. I agree with you there. In my mind, and there could be something, my mind could be broken. I'm just not seeing it. I admit that. I have a hard time reconciling that language in my head.
What language specifically? What language?
The language specifically, not necessarily, not the language of the insurrection, not the fact that you just stated. I'm with you. I hear you. The purpose of the decisions that day that were made by the people who went into the Capitol was to stop the certification of the election. I'm with you.
Correct.
I hear you.
Okay.
I saw it. I watched it on the news.
Okay.
So I hope that, tomorrow everything will be clear, and I'm excited for that. I mean, we won't get the answer tomorrow, but you understand what I'm saying.
I do. I guess the question I have for you, though, on this topic, and this is a good discussion, I think, so provocation, right? Do you think the language that day from Trump was provocative?
Yes.
Okay. So then the leader of the free world has a massively the biggest echo chamber that there is, right?
Yep.
All summer long created this doubt, for lack of a better term, in the mind of his voters. I mean, don't forget, this goes back to 2015. He said, again,
I'm with you.
He said, again, if the only reason I will lose is that the election is rigged, right?
Yep.
So for years, he talked about that. So his voters, hinging on every single word that he said. So he, on January 6th, stopped the steal with the name of the rally, all the messaging all summer long, all through the election, all the lies, everything else leading up to that particular day, right? He told his followers that unless you fight, you were going to lose your country. Yes, he said peacefully and patriotically one time. He said fight a few times. The question is, what did his followers do? Did they go to the Capitol peacefully, or did they go and they fight like hell? And then what was the intention of them going there? The intention was, and we just agreed, was to stop the certification of the Biden administration. That, by definition, is insurrection. The reason that we know that Donald Trump was the puppet master, because as soon as he sent out the tweet, the video, that bullshit video that he did, 3 hours later, they went home. So the question for you to consider when you're reading the Jeffersonian and the Madison letters is, if he didn't tell them to go to the Capitol that day, would they have? And I think it's safe to say that they wouldn't have.
All right. I hear you. Look, I don't have any, I don't disagree with you. I do not disagree with you.
Okay.
I want our country to move past this. I want. I'm tired
We
of
do
every single
too.
person. You know,
We do. We do
I
too.
want our country to move past this. So
Yeah.
I hear you. Listen, I appreciate you guys. I enjoy you guys' lives. I enjoy. I learn all the time. You guys are great at sharing the information. I really appreciate that. And you know, like I said, we disagree on things, but that's how we learn.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Yep.
Appreciate you.
All right,
Thank
man.
you.
Thanks a bunch.
Have a good night.
Hey,
You too.
really quick, several of you had asked for the date, so let me do it again. But first, as a mod and a co-host, can you please tap the screen? It'd be really awesome if we could get to at least 150 likes or 200K likes sooner than later. So everybody tappy tap tap tap.
Thank
And
you.
also, once again, to James Madison from Thomas Jefferson, 6 September 1789. 6 September 1789. To James Madison from Thomas Jefferson. And I really hope you enjoy reading it because it is such a beautiful letter between friends. And when I read it, I kind of miss the days, and showing my age, when I would write friends letters and I would get
Yeah.
one or two letters from a friend and how like cool that felt. Or even better
Pen
yet,
pals.
when I would get a letter when I was in the Navy and it would finally catch up to where I was.
Right.
That was always a fucking kick in the pants too. So
So here's a historical question for you that I don't know the answer to. So in the context of the Second Amendment, is what you're referring to like the Jefferson letters or the Madison letters? Is that what they're considered?
no, well, yeah, there are a whole bunch of those, but that specific one is about feelings upon the Constitution being an actual living document and being amended
Gotcha.
and being
Okay.
rewritten.
Okay.
As to the Second Amendment, that is just really going over Madison's thinking and
Gotcha.
the uprising in Massachusetts and the one I think in South Carolina and the writings back in with Henry, who I can't remember where the hell Henry was from for the life of me. God dang it.
Patrick Henry?
But anyway,
New
shit.
Hampshire. Patrick Henry,
I
you're
can't.
talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Wasn't he the
But there
give me
were
liberty? Wasn't he the give me liberty, you give me death guy?
I believe so. And one of my friends from Brandeis is literally going to call me and yell at me if he's listening because I don't remember this. And he wrote and he wrote a fantastic book on this, which I will plug the next time I find it. Yeah, Patrick Henry. So when you read the letters that the founders talk about when they talk about amendments, or when they talk about the forming of a constitution and they talk about European history and they talk about taxation and they talk about capitalism, these are really wonderful ways to broaden your horizons and learn about the people behind it. Now, as a caveat, I have a lot of issues with the fact that Native and Indigenous people were murdered and their land was stolen.
Agreed.
But I can appreciate the letters that these men wrote back and forth. It's an insight to their thought process. Part of what helps me with my critical thinking skills is I will read these every once in a while, or I'll read the Federalist letters, or I'll read the Canterbury letters, which is about separation of church and state, because the logic exercises that they express in written form are really a fantastic way for me to make sure that I'm not just monologuing and doing bullshit opinion, which is when my ego takes over, that the basis for how I'm discussing things is based on actual written historical documentation, and I'm providing an interpretation through critical thinking of those.
Right.
I by no means am the smartest man. I often tell people that I'm always the smartest stupid person in the room, because I'm very fortunate to have friends with PhDs that write and that teach. And when I get stuck, I do the what was that? Want to be a millionaire, and I call a friend. Right. And so I'll call one of my friends that's a college professor. I'm like, hey, we're going to talk about this stuff. And as a matter of fact, I'm probably going to reach out to Donald and maybe make an introduction, because I was just
Yeah.
thinking, holy shit, he would be a fantastic person to have on a panel as
Cool.
a PhD in history and a professor that's written a book, and the second edition of his book is coming out soon. So
Let's
I
do
will
it.
make sure to get permission to plug it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I want to remind people, and something you said reminded me that people who talk about and I've studied it as well, not nearly as much as you have, but by design, our Constitution was intended to evolve. That's why we have these things called amendments. As a reminder, when the Constitution was written, women didn't have the right to vote, and a whole bunch of other factors. Okay, let's think about that for a second. Just over 100 years ago, 1920, I think, is when women got the right to vote. 19th Amendment, the suffragettes. So that's the entire intention of the document. And literally, Thomas Jefferson, by design, wanted the Constitution changed, torn up, started from scratch every 19 years. So it's important contextually for people to kind of understand that. Look, as Anthony talked about earlier, I'm a pew owner. I mean, I've been most of my life. Grew up hunting, fishing, no big deal. That's not the issue here. The issue is about language. The issue is about interpretation. And the issue is for people who make the claim that they agree with the Constitution and don't know anything other than the first and second. And even the first, like most people can't even recite the language in the First Amendment aside from freedom of speech. That'd be a question we'll have to ask. Like I know the preamble of the Constitution because I watched Schoolhouse Rock as a kid. I can recite it in my sleep, do it all the time. And it's just like, those are the things that were important to me because I think it's necessary. Learning about manifest destiny and how we moved west and why, and what the incentives that were given to people to stake their claim and spread west. That's part of our history that we need to understand. And I think it's necessary. Much equally why it's necessary that you should be critically analyzing the people that you vote for. The court system in regards to Trump is going to do what it does. But you as a voter have got to be willing to critically analyze who you're voting for. That's why when we often ask the question, what's the line for you, Matt? What is the line? Many of you have told us that sexual abuse is not the line for you. Many of you have told us that even if he's found guilty, you're going to still vote for him because you believe it's the court that's corrupt. Have you ever thought for a second that maybe it's him? Maybe it's actually him that's corrupt? Maybe it's actually him that is allegedly committing crimes to be proven in court. Have you ever thought about that? Because that's important.
Now you're just crazy.
I know, right? That's the chaos in my world. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up Donk Award. Donk. I'm not sure. Maybe Don. Not sure. Donk Award. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. What's on your mind this evening?
Well, to answer the question, the Second Amendment was originally written for us to protect ourselves against enemies. And now it's being used to unalive our families and our children. So yes, it needs to be rewritten to today's time. But I think if with present day, the 14th Amendment is very important right now, because if Trump takes office again, then those amendments are going to go out the window altogether.
Did you happen to hear what Anthony was describing earlier? Because that's not the reason that the Second Amendment was written.
No.
So you want to do your breakdown again, Anthony?
Yeah, please, because I might have been not listening completely.
No, it's cool. That's why we're here.
Yeah, and I know that this is a really deep thing. So the Second Amendment has, I think, like 6 or 7 versions before the final edited version. That final edited version was as an appeasement to slave owners in order to give them protection and legal coverage so that when slaves escaped, they could have armed militias to go get slaves back. It was not intended for what you described. On its face, it's a disgusting remnant of slavery and should be completely abolished just on that face. And also, I was noting that a lot of people don't, including myself, again, I do not have a PhD in English Lit, but in order to understand how things were written in the 18th century, you have to understand how English was formed and punctuation of that time. And so when you read about what was not only Madison writing about, but the compromises that were made in the Second Amendment, it really is an eye opening and rather frightening experience to read through. I encourage people to read and learn about the Second Amendment. And as far as the textualist, the Supreme Court justices, Scalia is the wrong person to be following because, as all English Lit and grammar people will tell you, in Scalia's writing, he made up a new term that does not exist. And he was wrong in his interpretation of how to break the sentence down, right? So if anybody wants, PM me, and I will actually send you a graphic representation of how to properly graph the Second Amendment as written.
So Don, I think this is a really good opportunity here because I think you had, and again, we're not calling you out here, but it's an opportunity to learn.
No, you're
'cause you
right.
had-
I totally missed that. So
yeah, that's okay. I mean, that's why we're here, right? We learn every day. But I think that's where we get into, that's where people sort of dig their heels in on 2A because many people have the same belief that you have, or so that the government, a tyrannical government, things like that. There's so many interpretations that people have had, but historically, if we want to speak to the actual history and to be honest and be factual, as Anthony described, it is exactly the history of the 2A.
well, I do completely agree. It should be abolished. Our children are being unalived right now, and that's it's just wrong.
I agree. As a civilized society, I could not agree more.
You know,
Yep, 100%.
but like I said before, the 14th Amendment right now with present day, what's going on with Trump, is highly important because Trump has said many times he wants to demolish the Constitution.
He does.
He said he wants to be dictator,
He has.
and that should be a priority right now. And it's frightening.
Yeah, we agree. We live in a society where the rule of law matters to me. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on. I don't care what your background is. If you are convicted of criminality, then you need to be held accountable. No excuses. I don't care who you are.
Yep.
And another point, I wrote down a bunch of these points. The other point is, yes, we do need to be more educated because the people who are uneducated are the ones that are vulnerable. And the ones that are my father came here from Berlin. I'm first generation American. My father came here from Berlin. He had blonde hair, blue eyes, and my family had to get them out of the country because the Nazis were after the kids that taking them away from their families.
Yahtzees, please, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Yahtzee.
That's okay.
So shoot, I'm trying to get to my point, and it went out of my head.
You're discussing your dad and running from the Yahtzees and immigrating to America.
Right, and I always wondered for many, many, many years up until now, how on earth Hitler took power, and how is it that people didn't see what was going on and how this all happened. Now I get it. I completely get it now. The misinformation.
Yeah.
And the people who are uneducated, they're trusting in things that towards their own demise.
That's correct. And if you look back at the dawn and the birth of fascist regimes, the first thing that fascists take over, those in charge do, is they go for the people who are armed.
Right.
Those are the ones that they look for. So that's another reminder for MAGA that because Donald Trump is a fascist dictator, the threat's not coming from regular, sane, competent, responsible owners. It's coming from the people that are unhinged and believe that the tyrannical government is coming to get them.
Exactly. And
They're the threat. They're the threat.
And they've been feeding these people this for decades, you know, leading up to this point.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep.
You're right. That's a good perspective, Don. And so hopefully that helped a little bit of the breakdown kind of understanding. And Anthony, again, great job. I think it's really important to know historical context.
Yeah, it is. And that helped a lot. Believe me, you're right. A lot of people don't understand the amendments. And
You're right.
I'm a paralegal. I have a paralegal degree, associate's degree. I went to law classes and I still, there's so much I don't know. So much. I work.
You're right. All of us. We're all in that boat.
And I'm trying. I'm like, I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball, and I've only begun to scratch the surface of what I've been learning.
You're doing great because the first step is your willingness to learn. That's the first step.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think there was, you know what? There is one thing I do want to talk about, which I've brought up in other lives. Once all of this is over and, you know, people are in jail for what they're supposed to be held accountable for, and we try to start putting the pieces back together again, we need to address the misinformation that is being spread intentionally. I think running for office, and I've noticed an increase in this over the last 10 years, is when these people that are running for office, they twist the facts to make it look like their opponent is like criminal. And I think that's wrong. I think, you know, if somebody's running for office, they need to base it on the truth, and they need to be forced to base it on the truth and not twist things and to make their opponent look bad. I think we need to address misinformation because that's why we are where we are.
I don't disagree with you. We do have this little thing in the First Amendment called freedom of speech, and people will lean on that, and I don't disagree. I mean, again, Anthony and I've had many conversations about this. I mean, it's dangerous. We see it now. We know, for example, that as we speak, Tucker Carlson is in Russia, about to interview Vladimir Putin, who is the perpetrator of the majority of misinformation that we get.
Yes, exactly.
And he's going to use that, and he's going to spread it. And Tucker will edit content. The Russian regime will edit content, and buckle up. Because if you think 2016 and 2020 was bad for misinformation, buckle up.
Exactly. Yep. We need to make that our number one priority, because it's destroying and dividing the country.
Yeah, I agree.
And Putin knows it. He's doing it intentionally.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Which is a part, again, why the frustration, why Republicans in the House refuse to fund Ukraine.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you, Don.
Well, they're doing Putin's bidding.
They are indeed.
Yes.
They are indeed. That's exactly right. Thank you very much for jumping in. We really appreciate talking to you. Thank you for taking.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your willingness to learn too. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. And real quick facts, if I could, please.
Yeah, man. You got it, buddy.
If folks want to read some books that I enjoy, Founding Rivals: Madison versus Monroe, written by Chris DeRose. So it's here on the screen if people can see it, although it's probably backwards. This is a really fun read and an interesting read about the two Jameses from Virginia.
I'll give you the big screen for a second there, buddy.
Oh, good Lord. Scary. Let me hide my face. So this is one book. And this book, The Heir Apparent Presidency, is written by Donald. And Donald and I were students together at Brandeis University, and he is now a professor, which is super awesome. Obviously, Donald's much younger than I am, but this is a really, really good book. And I know a second edition is going to be coming out. Support my buddy Donald. Get this book when it comes out with the second edition. This is really important to understand presidencies and the history of this particular book, which is always focused on how presidents who have come behind other presidents that have done, like, in quote, great things, and what that's about. So highly recommend both books. And if anybody is interested in any other of the types of manners in which I gather facts, please send me a DM, and I am happy to share things with you. I just want to note that it's Wednesday, which means I need to be signing off a little early. I'm sure no
Real
one's
quick,
going to be upset. Yes, sir.
somebody didn't get Donald's last name. If you could put it in the chat.
Donald's last name is Zinman, Zinman.
Can you
And
do me a favor and put the titles of those books in the chat before you bounce for the evening?
yeah, I'll do it right now. I'll turn my camera off and do it and grab the phone.
I think the audience would appreciate that, bro. But again,
Okay,
Donka,
hey.
thank you for jumping in. Appreciate you, Donka.
Thank you.
You got it. Have a good night. All right. Anthony, thank you, bro. This was great. I appreciate your you doing this with me this evening. This was awesome. But I understand. I know it's Wednesday. You got to bail. I get it. But you'll be back tomorrow night. I know you will. All right. Continue to like and share, friends. Would really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Claw Sport, how are you tonight?
Hey, how's it going?
Very well. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. I've been listening to you now, I guess about 45 minutes or so. You really, I love what you're doing because you're honest, you're educated, you're read, and everything. You back everything up. Anyway, I'm not going to take up much of your time, but there was a cat earlier talking about the militia. Okay, he was really into this whole thing. And I wanted to just suggest some reading. And here's the sad thing. I just gave this book to somebody, and I can't remember the author, but it's called A Respectable Army. It's a great book, and it's written by a professor from Rice University. And as far as militia goes, he needs to read that book.
A Respectable Army. What's the author's name again?
I can't remember it. I'm so sorry, but I guarantee if you look it up,
I'll look it up right now.
Rice University was the professor, and it's called A Respectable Army.
I'm looking it up right now.
But it's a great book, and I think that would help that gentleman.
It's by James Kirby Martin. James Kirby Martin and Mark.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
That's it.
So, folks in the chat, it's called A Respectable Army. That's the military origins of the Republic, and it's written by James Kirby Martin and Mark Linder.
Perfect. And I'm sorry, man. I'm a widow. I'm raising 2 young kids, and I'm trying to get them to bed and doing all this.
Brother,
but anyway, I had a couple of points.
Mad respect.
Appreciate it. I just have a couple of points I wanted to also say. Hey, man, cool deal. You brought up Manifest Destiny. I had a conversation with my son about it tonight. You're awesome.
Thank you, brother.
Let's see. Last comment I have is, I guess about the misinformation on the web. Okay. Here's the gig. People need to do their research. Don't just listen to something and go, oh, okay. Read. The media, whatever. If they tell you something, check it out. Look into detail before you make your assumptions and your decisions.
Oh, yeah.
I guess
absolutely,
that's
bro. Absolutely.
This is only my second time coming on live, but I gotta go because I need to tuck my girl in. I'm glad I got to talk to y'all. But that book, A Respectable Army, it's a really good read. And anybody that's all uh, thinking about the whole militia thing, read the book.
Well done, Class 4. Well done. And big respect, bro. Big respect. Hashtag girl dad. Well done.
Take care, brother.
You too, brother. Have a good night.
You too.
Bam. Funny thing is, Trump has no federal charges of insurrection, but you keep making those claims. So, James, you have enough followers. Come up and let's talk about it. I just want to get your opinion. So please just jump in. As you've been watching, this is a respectful conversation. I just want to be able to have it with you because I'm just curious about your perspective on it. There you go. Hey, James, how are you tonight?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. So what's your take on the 14th Amendment, Section 3?
Well, basically, I mean, to me personally, is you personally are involved with it physically. Verbiage is one thing. Everybody has a First Amendment right to say anything, for the most part. Except, say fire inside a movie theater.
Right.
Closed ideas, but he also made a lot of options to go peacefully, go home, stay home. Don't those types of stuff. So, what the actions of some people who did break in, and they should be, if they broke in, fully charge those people who did break in. I'm not declining that at all. But to blame Trump for saying, fight like hell, we had to fight on this, but
right. What he said.
He said those things, but he also said, be respectful to the police, be respectful. We are the party of law and order and all this other stuff. Don't break the laws.
Yeah, that's fair. The comment that you made, though, James, was that he hasn't been charged. But that's not required, though, in the 14th Amendment.
Yeah, but for me, you're allowing everybody to make assumptions on things. To me, no, I'm saying this amendment. Let me clarify. The amendment and how people are going to take this is just strictly based upon their view.
All right, so let's talk about J6 though. So let's talk about it. So do you believe January 6th was an insurrection?
No.
What is the definition of insurrection?
Insurrection is you're trying to take over the government.
No, actually it's not. It's a violent act or uprising against a government or authority. So was January 6th violent?
In the case of them physically breaking and entering, yes. Physical damages. There were no physical damage to the property of the United States. No,
there wasn't.
No harm. No.
Wait a minute. There wasn't damage.
Meaning, they're like, okay. Let me rephrase that. Damage wasn't. There was breaking and entering into the walls, but there was also videos of people being let into the building as well.
Okay, but let's try to talk about it. Hang on 1 second, Jay. Wait, hold on 1 second. I'll let you finish. I promise I'll let you finish. I just want to level set on a couple of things because you said it wasn't violent. So have you not seen the footage of officers being beaten? Have you not seen that?
See, to me, that's a complete hoax because no officers were beaten in that. No, the whole thing of somebody officer dying during the
James, let's be real, man. 140 officers were injured that day. So how is that possible if officers weren't beaten?
Because there was no during the whole, because if that was the case, then there'd be a lot more people who were charged and things of that nature. Over
1,000 people have been charged, James.
Every news article I've seen, every video I've seen talks about how there were no physicalities towards the police officers, no deaths.
Okay. Hold on. Wait. Let's go one at a time. You can't bounce from everything. We're going to talk one at a time. So when you say videos and what you've read, where do you get them? What videos did you watch and what did you read?
I watched variety of news.
From where though? From
I watched MSNBC, CNN, Fox.
So if you watch it, I don't watch CNN. So if you watched MSNBC, you cannot honestly and sincerely sit here and say that there was no violence that day.
No physical harm done that day.
Over 140 officers were injured, man. I mean, how can you possibly say that?
That's what I'm saying. Those are the videos that I have not seen any of those videos. I will go back and research, but I know One video that they like to provide is that whole the one of the police officers dying during this insurrection.
No,
That turned
that's
out
not,
to be
that's
false.
no, nobody's ever made that claim, James. You're making that claim.
No, there was during senators were talking about that. I actually seen YouTube videos of senators.
So YouTube's not a source, James. YouTube is not a source. Let's try to level set on a couple of things, okay? Because this is my concern for you, James. Right? My concern is that you don't have the information specific as to what happened that day. All right, and I'm generally here to try to help if you're interested. All right. So the reality of the circumstances at that day is that over 140 officers were injured. Over 1,000 arrests made, people convicted, people in jail for sedition, people in jail for assaulting police officers, people serving 5 years, breaking and entering, smashing glass, beating cops with baseball bats and fire extinguishers and flagpoles, bear spray, pepper spray. There was a gallows outside the Capitol. This is all factual information, James. I hope you will take me at my word. I am not lying to you. Okay? This is all factual. So my concern is that, have you ever heard this term called confirmation bias, James?
No.
Okay, confirmation bias is when you only will accept information that supports the belief that you have in your head.
Okay.
Okay? So it's dangerous. It's dangerous for people on the left too, right? So the definition of insurrection is a violent act against a government or authority. That's a definition of it.
Okay.
So January 6th was violent. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. So is the Capitol in Washington, D.C., is that the hub of our government?
Of course.
Okay. So then if it's violent and it was an act against our government, then by definition, it's an insurrection.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So do you agree with that now?
I'm following you.
Okay, so then we have a clause in our Constitution. It's a disqualification clause. Well, let me back up a second. Do you know what's required to be the president of the United States?
Electoral College of 270.
No, that's how you win. But the qualifications, like you need to be at least 35.
35, resident of the United States.
Natural born citizen, actually. Natural born citizen.
Yeah.
And?
Those are the two main ones I remember.
You can't have engaged in insurrection or rebellion.
Yeah, okay.
So if those are the three qualifying clauses, then that would mean you can't be 34, you can't have been born in Sweden, and you can't have committed insurrection and or rebellion.
Okay.
Right? So that's what the 14th Amendment, Section 3 states. That's
But again,
the disqualifying language.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I get that. I understand. But my thing is, if you can't go by what he just says, a verbal thing, because now you're assuming that he meant insurrection. You don't know what he could have meant in that respect, because I mean, he did tell his people to go home peacefully, to respect the officers and things of that nature.
But didn't he do that in his video at the end? That's what he said. We're the party of law and order. Mm-hmm. That's what he said. That's what he said at the end. So again, the question is, James. Yes, I will give you that during his speech he said peacefully. Mm-hmm. But he also said fight like hell, didn't he, James?
Yeah.
Okay, so what did they do? What did they do? Did they go to the Capitol peacefully, or did they go there and fight like hell?
Well, some were peaceful, but some did fight. And I'm not going to deny that part of it. But again,
right. Okay, so wait. So I want because initially you had said it wasn't violent, but now you agree that they did fight. So I'm glad that we've come to that understanding that yes, in fact, it was violent. Okay, don't forget somebody was unalive that day inside the Capitol, Ashley Babbitt, and then other people also lost their lives because people got stampeded over. A person died of a heart attack. We know that there were weapons there, so we know firearms. We know that there were firearms there. Okay, we know that. So again, specifically, it was an insurrection. The language of the Constitution says that if you engage in insurrection, then you cannot be president.
But again, I mean, those are just words. I mean, he wasn't there physically in the insurrection. I understand. No, I didn't say convicted. I didn't say that part. I understand but he wasn't there at the insurrection. For me, to me, I interpret that as you are physically there committing the insurrection. That's how I read it. That's how I read it.
Okay, but you just admitted that it was an insurrection. So here's another analogy. All right. say you're a mob boss, James. Say you're in The Sopranos and you're Tony Soprano, okay? And you tell your people and you create an environment where they follow your lead and they go do something. Are you responsible for that?
That's a hypotheticalist analysis. That's not
No,
something
it's
you
not.
can.
It's not hypothetical. It's reality. You ever watch the Mafia movie? Ever watch the movie about the mob? Mob bosses? Ever watch? Whitey Bulger? I mean, again, giving directions, provocation, incitement. Those are all the things that he did that day. Would you agree that he fired up the crowd?
He fired them up in the way that he wanted to make sure that they again, for me, I'm looking at both sides. I look at the fact he's peaceful things. Fight like hell could mean any number of things. It doesn't. He didn't say. It's not like he physically told his people to. I mean, your mob boss will physically go tell. I want you to go kill that guy. Mob boss will tell you.
But he did say go to the cap. But James, he said go to the Capitol.
But he never told them to go inside. But he never told them to go inside and things like that.
But he said go to the Capitol, James. The Capitol was closed. They didn't have a permit to be there. Why would he send them to the Capitol? Why would he send them there?
You could say you can peaceful protest any public place.
Right. No, it's not. It was closed. You can't go in. You can't go in. It was closed. You can't go in. It was closed. Government business. So again, why did he send them there?
Now, for me, it's for peaceful protesting, nothing else. That's my
right. But why did he send them there?
Oh, because it was a way to make sure Congress sees them protesting, and they will hopefully do the right thing and certify to make sure the election was certified the right way.
Right. So stop the transition. Right. That's why. Okay. That right there, James. Again, you just admitted that that's an insurrection. So your own words. You just said he sent them there, the Capitol, to make sure that they could stop the transfer of power. That's an insurrection, bro.
Not to me. That's just you going there to protest doesn't mean it's actually going to stop the insurrection. They want to show that.
But that's what he said. But that's what he sent them to do, man. That's what he sent everything all summer long. That leading up to the election, he told his followers and people like you, because it sounds like you believed it too, that the election was stolen. The only way he could lose was if the election was stolen.
I do question some of the election stuff. I do.
Well, you should, James. You shouldn't. You shouldn't question it, man. You shouldn't, because there's no evidence. There's no evidence at all. None.
I question. For me, the big one was Maricopa County. How does one county take longer to cast their votings than a whole state of Florida when the population is 4 or 5 times larger in Florida than it is in Maricopa County? Why does it take Maricopa County so long? Why did it take Maricopa County that long?
What did the cyber ninjas that were hired by the Trump team? What did the cyber ninjas find in Maricopa County, James?
I have no idea because I don't know what they did.
Okay, they were there to audit. Do you know what they found?
Nope.
They found no proof of fraud. In fact, they found more votes for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So again, this is my concern, James, is that I talked to a lot of people, a lot of the days about this topic, and it's the same from, unfortunately, people like you've been lied to, James. Okay, you've been lied to. And you don't have to believe me. You can watch A Day of Rage. You can watch 4 Hours at the Capitol. You can watch these videos of the event, embedded reporters that were there to cover the peaceful transition of power or the confirmation or the certification of the election. Watch it. Give yourself an opportunity to make up your own mind with the actual evidence as opposed to cherry picking. I would really encourage you to do that, man, because it's dangerous. Okay? James? Okay. Thanks, James. So I want to encourage you to do some research. You can watch A Day of Rage. You can watch 4 Hours at the Capitol. There's all kinds of he's gone. Okay. I tried. You never know. We might run into a few. Continue to like and share, guys. Appreciate it. El Camino, how are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. What are you laughing about?
I've never done this, but thank you for having me on.
You got it.
I mean, I just don't get it with the whole MAGA thing. James is a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
You could preach to him all day long. You're not going to change his opinion.
I know, but I think it's important for the people in the chat to also hear the specifics around the facts of the case. That's why I do it. You're right. I mean, I may not change his mind, but it's for people that are also listening that are willing to hear.
What makes me mad about Trump is I'm neither left nor right. I'm kind of down the middle. Do I think Joe Biden might be a little bit old? Yeah, but you can't argue with what he's done with the economy.
Agreed.
And, nobody wants to pay attention to that. And I seen an interview the other day with Trump, and this really stokes my fire about Trump. In the interview, Trump said, well, the economy's doing better because everybody thinks I'm going to be reelected. That is Donald Trump right there in a nutshell.
He also said he wanted the economy to fail. Remember that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, but what makes me mad is for 11 years I was in the Air Force.
Okay.
And I worked in a skiff. When we weren't on the jet, which the jet was a skiff, but when we weren't on the jet, our day job was in a skiff.
Mm-hmm.
And you learned right away, you do not take a single document out. And I don't know what year it is. You probably know. During Trump's first year, under which would have been 2016, 2017?
2017. Yep.
He had a young airman first class sent to prison for 4 years because she took one document that said that the Russians were interfering in the election and made it public. She spent 4 years in prison for taking that one document.
Yeah.
And you know who I'm talking about, correct?
I do. It was the reality winner, I think. And I think you bring up a really good point. And a reminder is that Donald Trump is the one that changed the law regarding mishandling of classified information from a misdemeanor to a felony. He's the one. His administration is the one that made that change. So.
And what bothers me about Trump taking all these documents is we don't know exactly how many he had. So how can we track what's the correct number we're getting back?
Well, we know what was missing. We also know that they found another storage facility recently in Mar-a-Lago that was locked, that had the locks changed. So we know that there's still more. And I know that NARA, there's been reporting that NARA has continued to work to try to get more documents from him. So, we also know that he shared classified information. But that whole case isn't even about the documents. It's about obstruction of justice and willful retention of national defense information. That's what that whole case is about.
Which one out of all these facts? I mean, I like the insurrection. I think that may be the strongest. Which one do you think is the strongest?
Oh, I think the Mar-a-Lago documents case is a done deal. He's absolutely convicted for that case because it's right in front of us. The evidence is right there. Again, I want to premise this by saying I believe in the rule of law. I believe that everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty. I believe in due process, and I think everybody should get a fair trial to the best of their ability. With that said, we have evidence of obstruction of justice. We have evidence that he willfully withheld national defense information. It's open and shut as far as I'm concerned.
What burns my ass about this facts, and it really stokes my fire, is I don't think he will ever see one day behind bars.
I used to think that. I'm not so sure anymore. I think the likelihood is you're right that it'd be house arrest. Again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I believe in the rule of law, like I said. But when convicted, what will happen? You're probably right. He probably won't spend time in jail, but he'll be in house arrest for the rest of his life.
Nothing would make me happier to see his fat ass sitting behind a jail cell. God, that would make me so happy.
I think a lot of people would agree with you.
But thanks, Facts.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Have a good night.
You too.
Later. Yeah, I want to say that again to set the record straight. I believe in the rule of law. I don't care who you are. If you commit crimes, you get due process, you get a fair trial, you're guilty, you go to jail. Former president of the United States has never been in a situation like this. So our system has never had to respond to a circumstance like this. So what happens if he's convicted? When he's convicted, I feel strongly that he will be convicted. I think he's going to be convicted in the J6 case that we now know will happen this summer before the election. I think Aileen Cannon is doing everything she can. She's the judge of the Mar-a-Lago case to make sure that this case doesn't get tried before the election, but there's still a possibility that it might. I think the election interference case in New York regarding the payments to Stormy Daniels, I think, again, he's got to get convicted of that. And I think the RICO case is also open and shut. So the evidence is overwhelming, and that's the frustrating part for me, is that I think it's a responsibility of every citizen in our country to critically analyze your candidates, and MAGA doesn't do that. MAGA wants to impeach Joe Biden without any evidence. Even the people that are doing the investigating, they said we don't have evidence connecting him to crimes. But yet there is evidence, again, allegations to be proven in court against Donald Trump. But MAGA doesn't want to read the indictments. And I don't know why. I wish I did. Hey, Steve, you're back. What's on your mind tonight?
Can you just name one single person that was found guilty of insurrection for January 6th?
Bro, nobody was charged with insurrection after the Civil War. Okay?
So no one.
No one in our history has been charged with it since the Civil War, man. The entire Confederacy.
Exactly. So who is getting
doesn't
charged
matter.
with insurrection?
It doesn't matter. It's not a clause in the 14th Amendment. We had the conversation before. A charge is not required.
Yeah, but if there's no charge,
there's no
it
yeah
never
but, bro.
happened. It's a
There's
figment
no-
of your imagination. It's
Wait,
Trump derangement syndrome.
Steve, stop.
Critical
Is the
thinking.
14th
Look, we've
stop.
already talked about your
Stop.
critical thinking skill facts.
And we've already talked about the fact that you have none. Is this a figment of imagination right here? Is that
Look at the charge. Look at the charge. There's a charge for insurrection, actually,
Steve,
in the
Steve,
code of law.
Steve, answer my question. Is this
Okay,
a
but
figment of
now
my
look
imagination?
at the code of law.
Steve,
with the
stop.
charge for
Is
insurrection.
this a figment of my imagination? Yes or no?
Look at the code of law.
Why will you not answer the question? What are you afraid of?
Look at the code of law for
Steve,
insurrection.
Last chance. Is this the figment of my imagination? Yes or no?
The insurrection, yes. January 6th was a figment of your imagination.
Really? So it didn't happen?
No, it didn't. There was no insurrection.
In your opinion?
There was a riot.
In your opinion? What's an insurrection?
There was a
Steve?
riot.
Well, let's see about your critical thinking. Okay? What's an insurrection, Steve?
That's when someone's trying to take over the government.
No. An insurrection is a violent act or uprising against a government or authority. That's what an insurrection
A
is.
violent act against a government or authority to what?
Correct.
To say hello?
A violent act or uprising against a government or authority. That's what an insurrection is.
So
That's
what
what
you're
it
saying
is.
is every act ever against any government agency is insurrection. So BLM is responsible for multiple insurrections.
Bro, you don't get it. Why do you come up here? Because you come up here like you have this attitude.
When you
like
burn down a police station, that's an act against authority.
No, that's a riot, bro. That's a riot.
That's a riot now.
It is.
So
That's a
even though
riot.
you're going against a government authority, now it's a riot.
Insurrection is a violent act against a government or authority. That's
There
what
you
it
go.
was on January 6th.
I just told you what BLM did.
No, bro, you don't. You're a racist too. Good night. Unbelievable. I don't even know why I bothered bringing him up. What a waste of friggin' time. Oh my God. Unreal. CP, how are you tonight?
Hey, doing well. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
Outstanding. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out why the Democrats all of a sudden have this hunger need to go after Trump.
Is it the
When
Democrats
George
or is
W.
it?
Bush did something way worse
What did he
than
do?
what Trump did.
What did George W. Bush do?
Oh my God, he lied about a war.
Okay, I don't disagree, man. I mean, again, if you want to talk about holding presidents responsible for war crimes, sure, I have no problem with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
I have no
I
issue
feel
with
like
that.
George W. Bush should be tried for war crimes.
I think there's other
100%.
presidents we could. I think there's other presidents we could as well. But don't you think there's a difference between? And I don't disagree with you, but don't you think there's a difference between things that you do while you're president as part of your presidential responsibilities, as opposed to trying to stop the confirmation of the person that you lost the election to? Don't you think there's a
I'm
difference
sorry.
there?
What was your name again?
Facts.
Say it again.
Facts.
Just facts. Okay, so I can address you as facts.
Can you answer?
But,
Can you answer
so-
the question that I just asked you, though? Can you answer the question I just asked?
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't hear your dang question. Hold on one second. Let me go inside for a minute. Say your question again.
Okay, so I don't disagree with you that George
Yeah.
Bush committed war crimes, but he did that as the president, operating under the role of the president, the commander in chief, right? What
Sure.
Donald Trump did was not the same thing. Wouldn't you agree?
He wasn't operating as a president.
He
at the
wasn't,
moment?
was he? He wasn't, right? So attempting the president of the United States has no. Did you read the opinion? Wait. Did you read the opinion from the D.C. Circuit Court for denying his immunity?
I did. Yeah.
What did it? So it said specifically in there that he was not operating as a president because a president.
I mean,
their
that's an
duties.
opinion.
Wait, let
It
me
was the
finish.
first-
Let me finish,
Yeah.
please.
Oh, sure.
The president does not have any control over the campaign. Okay, the presidential duties do not transfer to the campaign. That was the argument. So the question I have for you was, do you think January 6th was an insurrection?
Okay, so I listened to the speech, and I wasn't incited to commit an
Were you
insurrection.
there? Were you there?
Well, no.
Okay, so again, I'm asking you, was January 6th an insurrection?
Okay, so the thing is that there were people there that didn't like the vote, right?
Okay, let's answer the question first, okay? Then we'll get back to it.
Well, no,
in your opinion,
I mean, the facts
hold
are
on.
this.
I asked you a question though. I want you to answer the question, okay? Was January 6th, in your opinion, an insurrection? Yes or no?
Well, nothing happened. There was an overturn, or
So
somebody
are you
was
saying
not
no?
threatened.
So are you saying no?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't think January 6th was an insurrection. Okay, so what is an insurrection then, CP? What is it?
An insurrection is what the Confederates did with the Union back in the Civil War. That's what the
Okay.
whole
Okay,
Fifth Amendment is about.
What is
It's
it?
about
Well,
like separating and seceding from the Union and creating an entire organization. An
no,
organization
it's actually not. So what is an insurrection?
goes against the entire Constitution. That's an
What i-
insurrection.
What is an insurrection by definition? What is it?
That's what it is.
No,
It's when an
maybe you can-
organization has like-minded
Organization?
beliefs that
No,
goes
no.
against
No,
a.
no. What is an insurrection, CP? Let's not
I
come
don't
up
know.
with
What
the
is your
theory.
definition of an insurrection?
It's not
sir?
my definition. It's what the
No, let
definition
me
is.
know what yours is, because I need to really
It's
know, because
it's
I
not
don't
mine.
I'm not
It's not
following the
mine.
tone of this whole conversation.
Okay, it's not my definition.
I
It's
gave
what
you
the.
mine. You
Okay,
give
but
me yours,
no, I'm going to give you
because
the
it's all
definition. It's not
based off
mine.
of. Well,
CP,
no, this is all based off of nothing.
bro.
Nobody
So
knows anything about this.
okay,
No
so
court has
once
ever
again,
ruled
you
on
haven't.
this.
That's not true. So let's back up a second. So again, I asked you a question about what the. I don't think you really gave me an answer. So an insurrection, by definition, is a violent act or uprising against a government or authority. That's what it is. So was
Well,
January
that's a
6th?
definition right here.
Wait. Was January 6th violent? Yes or no?
No.
Who caused the violence?
Is that what I asked you? Was January 6th violent? Yes or no?
Zero. No, it didn't look violent to me based off the videos.
You don't think it was violent.
No.
So Ashley Babbitt lost her life that day, right?
Yeah. Who
Okay,
caused it?
so do you think somebody being shot is violent?
Who shot?
It's not what I asked you.
Who made the
That's
shot?
not what I asked you.
Who took the shot?
CP, the question is specifically, the question
Who
is,
took the shot?
bro, you don't get it. Why won't you answer the question? Seriously,
Well,
what
I'm
are
trying
you
to
afraid
answer
of?
the question. It's
No, you're
weird.
not. You're trying to punt away. Just listen a second, okay? Just listen, please. Just listen, okay? If you're going to sit here and say, after 3 years, that January 6th wasn't violent, then you need help, man. Seriously.
Well, now
You
you're
need
getting
help.
psychology, huh?
No,
I
I'm
mean,
just asking you. How can you
well, the
how can you
definition of
possibly say that?
insurrection is an organized and usually violent act of revolt or rebellion against an
Against a
established
government or
government
authority.
or
Exactly
governing
what I just
authority
said.
of a nation state or of other political entity by a group of citizens or subjects, also in any act of engaging in such revolt.
That's
The
what I
thing
just said,
is
bro.
that there's the
Once again,
organization.
I'm not going to let you
Where
monologue
is
away
it?
from this. You're pivoting. I'm not going to let you
Where is
pivot.
the
I'm not
organization?
going to let you. I'm not going to let you pivot. Bro,
Black
listen.
Lives Matters was an insurrection.
Oh my God. Do you need your wife to fight your battles for you, or can you do it?
No, I'm doing it.
Okay, thank you.
Please,
So once,
please don't interrupt.
no, you're the one that's interrupting. Okay, so
No,
specifically.
I asked her to interrupt.
Okay, so specifically, again, I can't imagine that you've not seen any of the footage from that day.
No, I've seen
Because
the
how
footage, and it looks
can
pretty
you
peaceful.
how
There's
can
some
you
guy sitting in a weird costume.
So
you know,
would you do me a favor? Would you do me a favor? Would you watch A Day of Rage and 4 Hours at the Capitol? Honestly.
why, some edited footage?
No, it's not edited footage, bro. What you've watched is edited footage. Okay? So how can you possibly say,
MSNBC from
wait,
CNN?
nope, I don't watch CNN. Don't watch MSNBC. I'm not a news guy. I get my information from the people that were there. I watched the footage of embedded photographers and people that were there and people who were in the Proud Boys who shared their video on Facebook, dude. Again, the question is,
So shouldn't they be punished?
They have been punished. They're
Shouldn't
in
they
jail.
be punished?
They have been punished. They're in jail.
Yeah, not Trump. He didn't incite
He
all
did.
those different organizations
He
to do
did,
something.
though. He did.
Really? So you have evidence of that? You have
Yeah.
emails or something? Or
I
some
have the
sort of
court.
campaign?
We have the court's decision, bro. We have the court's decision.
But it's somebody's opinion based off of what? What is
Based
the
on
evidence?
evidence. Okay, so do you want to have a conversation, or are you just convinced that Trump did nothing wrong?
No, I'd really like to know, because George W. Bush did something way worse.
Once again, we pivoted to George W. Bush. I'm asking you sincerely.
Well, it just seems like you guys
Can
are
I please
picking
just finish a sentence?
Yes,
Thank you.
sir.
I'm asking you sincerely. Do you want to try to learn, or have you already made up your mind that Trump can do no wrong in your brain?
No, I think he does a lot of wrong.
Okay, so are you planning on voting for him?
I mean, like, based off of Biden?
I'm
Jeez.
asking you again.
I mean,
I'm
like,
asking you,
Biden versus
CP,
Trump?
CP,
Yes.
Stop. Okay, so is there no line that he can cross?
I need RFK Jr. to step up.
CP, can you please, do you have any self-control at all? Any? Can you just
No,
not talk
I mean,
for 20
yeah,
seconds, please?
Yeah, sure.
20
yeah,
seconds.
Go ahead.
20
I'm
seconds.
sorry. I thought you
I'm-
cut me off, but that's okay.
I'm
You can
trying
go
to
ahead
get a
and talk.
sentence out, bro, and you're not letting me do it. Listen,
Well, you're asking me questions that I'm trying to answer.
you're not answering. I'm
Okay.
asking you,
You
is
want me
there
to
a...
answer it your way?
No, I am asking you, is there a line that he can cross where you will stop voting for him? Any line.
Well, yeah, of course.
What is it?
I mean, any line that transfers into.
What about sexual abuse?
No, that's not a thing.
Okay.
I mean, come on, every
Not-
single
not a
president
thing,
out there
right.
has been
Okay.
accused of sexual abuse.
Okay, good night. You see, there it is, friends. There it is, right? Yeah. Now, I've been accused many, many times of not only to have a conversation with people, but when people, especially MAGA, I mean, he's deep MAGA, and he needs his wife to tell him what to say. You can't have a conversation if you're not going to be sincere, right? It's just really, 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 really sad that we have to go through this after all this time. But whatever, no problem. Host can't do what? I'm sitting here. Hello, buddy.
Hi, my friend.
How are you?
Good. I just had a couple of things I wanted to say about the Amendment 14, about the whole
Sure.
officer debate.
Go for it.
But I first, right before I do that, say how disgusting that the last guy was, that his wife is listening and even feeding him, and he still said it was not a big deal to essay a woman. Gross. Anywho, what I was going to say about his whole claim that he's not an officer, or the office of the presidency isn't an office. I would like to point the people to remember that he asked the Department of Justice to represent him in the E. Jean Carroll case under the Westfall Act because he was during his quote unquote official duties. He was an officer. Official is part of the word office. He was doing his official duties under the office of president. And second, I found this little nugget when I was doing some research. Give me 1 second. I have it pulled up here. Also in the Postal Act of 1799, for example, it specifically identifies the president as an officer of the United States because the language clearly states which officers of the United States should be granted a franking privilege, which is the ability to send mail by their signature rather than by postage, listing both the president and vice president as officers of the United States.
What are you reading that from? I'm curious now.
This is a, it was actually, it was in the, it's salon.com.
Okay.
But it was in his brief to the Colorado Supreme Court, and it's stating that Halperin's research suggests that the Postal Act of 1799, so it's about the actual Colorado case as well. I'll tell you the name of it. Give me 1 second.
So
it's salon.com.
It's the Postal Act that what you're referring to.
The Postal Act of 1799.
Got it.
Which only specific people who were officers of the United States or whatever could get to where their signature alone, you could send mail. They didn't have to have a postage stamp. And it named president and vice president as officers in order to do that.
Well, that's what again, that's part of the interpretation. I appreciate you sharing that with me. That's part of the interpretation. That's what the Supreme Court's going to have to navigate their way through.
Right, and I just thought that was interesting because I was doing some research on my own, just trying to educate myself on his claim of being an officer, and I just found that those two. I know Glenn Kirshner. Do you listen to him?
I do. Yeah, we might be getting him as a guest maybe at some point here, maybe.
Oh, I love that guy.
Yeah.
He actually was on. He was actually on I think MSNBC today. It's either last night or today. I don't know. I didn't sleep half the night, so I can't remember if it was last night or today I watched it, or if it was at 3:00 this morning. I don't know. But he was on there stating the same thing about the Westfall Act.
That's really
He said
cool.
he specifically was on there saying, dude, Trump was in there saying that he wanted the DOJ to represent him because he was doing his official duties as president. And so, but now he's saying he wasn't an officer and he wasn't doing his official duties. So,
Wow, this is going to be interesting. Yeah, and a reminder to folks, the oral arguments in this case start tomorrow. Thank you for that breakdown, my friend. That's awesome. I'm going to have to read the Postal Act, the Post Office Act of 1792 now.
1799.
Okay,
1799.
Gotcha. All right. I'll look at that. Oh my God.
But just thought I would give that little nugget to you as far as
Thank you,
something about official duties and stuff and being officers. So
Appreciate you. That's awesome.
thank you.
Thank you very
Have
much.
a good night.
You too. Later. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Wow. Okay. Very, very interesting. Steve, you're not coming back up, dude, because you don't want to debate. You just want to yell and act smart, and you're just not. You're just so woefully misinformed about so many things, bro. Do better. Just do better. Do better. Do better. Please. Blue, how are you tonight?
What's going on, man?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm not here to debate with you because I know you're dealing with these MAGA people for a while. I just wanted to drop a little encouragement. I listen to you a lot, and I don't know how you do it, man. I don't know how you do it.
And some days are better than others, but I think there's an opportunity because there's so much misinformation out there. And if one person changes their mind from these conversations, then it's worth it to me.
Well, I'm a liberal independent voter, and I live in the MAGA hellscape. So it's hard because they're not going to listen to you most of the time. They don't listen to facts. And I literally listened to a conversation yesterday where they were rooting for Vladimir Putin to come in and stop the 2024 election if it looked like there was cheating going on. And then in the next breath, they call themselves patriots and while they root against the country. And it's crazy out there right now. It's crazy.
It is. It really is, and I think that the dangerous part of it is that people are unwilling to look past their own confirmation bias and to see the truth. And they can accuse me or you or everyone else saying that we're the ones that are lying when we actually have the facts and the evidence on our side. So that's the reality of it.
I gave up that fight a long time ago. A lot of guys I work with, they're hardcore MAGA. And like I said, I live in a red state and, well, half the state's red, but the part I live in is like a MAGA hellscape down here. And common sense went out the window a long time ago. But like I said, I'm going to let you do your thing. I listen to you. I love what you do. And I don't know how the hell you do it, but good luck to you, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Have a good night. Be safe out there.
You too.
Thanks, buddy. I mean, again, it's really important. I want to go back to CP. I think it's just, you're standing there in front of your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, and you're an apologist for a sexual abuser, and I just make that make sense. Literally, I don't care about that. Don't give a shit. Like, really? My God. How can anybody possibly say that? Steve, you're done, bro. You're not coming back. So stop trying, right? You're just a disingenuous debater who's got no facts on his side, who thinks he's smart. And you're not. You're a fool. You're a fool. You're a muppet, to use Adam's favorite term.
Actually,
Lucas.
yeah. What do you think is more important? I want to see what's more important for you.
The question is that you're the one that's to answer. How old are you, Lucas?
I'm 16.
Okay, good night. Have a good night. See, all the settings are changing. It's strange that all the settings were set prior. So I don't know what's going on. Same thing with the coin cod. I set the age restriction, the whole 9 yards. It's just really, really weird that we are in this place in that regard. Steve, you're done, bro. You're just done. You're not coming back. Stop requesting. It's a glutton for punishment. You've been dog walked like 10 times by me, and I'm not going to do it again. So, Lucas, when you get some pubic hair, come back. We can talk. Terrell, how are you tonight?
Hey, how are you, my man?
I'm doing well. What's going on?
I love your platform. I watch you all the time, man.
Thank you, brother.
And I'm a little late. I'm just really getting in, so been trying to get up here, but I do appreciate you bringing me up. So, what's the question here? Or I see the question. What's more important and why? And in reference to what?
Second Amendment and the 14th Amendment. So the idea behind this question is that we feel and we've seen that MAGA tends to not look past the Second Amendment. And they claim to be constitutionalists, and they really don't understand the text. They don't understand the history, the origin behind what the Second Amendment is. And yet they'll say that they're constitutionalists, but when we cite other language that's in the Constitution, they say it's bullshit. So the point is, tell me why the Second Amendment is more important than the 14th or the 5th or the 9th or the 19th. That's the idea.
Yeah. So again, I just be honest, bro. I'm not really, educated in the Constitution like that. So I'll just land my plane. Thank you for letting me up. It's good talking with you, brother. I'll let somebody else have this space.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Have a good night. Be safe out there. It's a fair question, right? I mean, that's the idea behind this discussion this evening. I do think it's necessary that we, guest, blue heart, if you want me to bring Steve back up again. Red heart, if we should send Steve packing for the night, please chat. Blue heart for Steve can come back so he can get dog walked again. red heart that we should say goodnight to Steve. Steve. A lot of red hearts out there. Steve, the tribe has spoken. Nighty night. Nighty night, Steve. Hey, Ashley, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Can you hear me, honey?
Yes, I got you. What's on your mind this evening?
Well, I'm charging my phone up because it's on 4%. This is the thing with me. Me and my brother's parents made sure, and I get funny looks and laughed at when I say this. To me, and I came up with this on my own, to me, there is a fence that's in the middle. Call it whatever color you want, white, black, whatever. On one side, it's us. On the other side, it's them. They don't know. They hate the fact that he's guilty. I just don't understand why they are wearing Trump's mugshots and still say that it's a fake mugshot. No, it's a real mugshot.
I don't go to that he's guilty yet. Do I believe that he will be found guilty? I do, but I believe in the rule of law. Due process. Everybody gets it. He'll get his day in court.
And to me, I've been called a traitor because I'm against Trump 100%. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll be a traitor against Trump.
Sure.
But I get looks from people, my color, our color, because to them, I should go for Trump. I should be on the Republican side than the Democrats because, yeah, both parties don't really give a damn about either one of us. But the Democrats are doing what we're supposed to do and trying to do to bring our democracy back. People who support that idiot, I want to say something else, but I don't want to get you banned. But like I'm saying, people who want to support that idiot, it's crazy because to me, instead of watching Republican news channels, there are that's all they want to watch because I'm not saying all, but the majority of Republicans, all they want to watch all Republican news. They don't want to watch anything else because they don't like the fact that it has been proven, and I've been told by people here and there that the FBI somebody paid the FBI, that us on the left, even independents who are against Trump, have paid the FBI to come up with all that.
Well, that's a
all
claim.
the fake paperwork.
That's a claim that they've made. It's not been proven. That's their belief that it's been proven. So that's what we have to be careful with. That we don't want to spread misinformation because it's not been proven. We know that's a lie that they want people to believe. That the FBI were agitators and the whole nine yards. So we just have to be careful how we talk about that.
No, I understand. I don't want to get you banned. But I just don't understand how they don't want to believe that J6 was an insurrection. How can you not believe that, for one, and for two, he incited that.
He did.
And it's like, they want to believe that it was peaceful. It was peaceful at first, but people who did not go there for the speech were walking to the Capitol not to wait on everybody else, but so they could start the insurrection after he was done with his speech.
Yeah.
And yeah, Trump did say that he was going to be with them.
He did.
When things go down.
He did indeed. You're right. You're right, Ashley.
He wasn't. All he did was go back to the White House,
sit in the one of the offices and had a cheeseburger or whatever and ate and watched the insurrection go down. And how they cannot believe that it wasn't an insurrection just boggles my mind.
I know, Ash, you're right. I mean, that's why we're talking about it. That's why this conversation is important for us to have. I appreciate you jumping in tonight, Ashley. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I gotta go. Thank you so much.
Got it. Thank you. Have a good night. Be safe out there.
You too.
Again, there's an opportunity here if people are willing to listen and learn, right? You don't have to believe me. I really don't care. That's not my intention. I'm not up here to try to tell you to believe me. I'm up here to try to remind you that there's information that's out there that's going to defeat your confirmation bias if you're willing to listen. I mean, we can use a couple of previous guests this evening, people that are unwilling to look. And why is that? Unwilling to look. You make up your mind that something is something and you're unwilling to look past your own bias. And that's dangerous, right? I watch right-wing news, so you don't have to, okay? The story today in regards to the immunity claim was that, let me see if I can remember some of the phrases that they used. They basically stated that denying the president the right to immunity is anti-American. That's what the message that the right-wing echo chambers are trying to tell people who watch it. Ironically, giving a president immunity is absolutely anti-American. Making sure that the president is above the law is ridiculous. So they want you to believe, MAGA, they want you to believe that the DC Appeals Court's decision telling a president that they don't have immunity is anti-American. This is what we're talking about. This is the idea behind this misinformation bullshit that we see all the time. It's fucking crazy. And the sad part about that, MAGA, is that you know that. You know you don't want the president to have immunity, because I'll remind you that it's not just about Trump. It's also about any president. So if you believe a president should have immunity, then Joe Biden's going to stay in the White House. He can break every law in the book because you don't care, because you want the president to have immunity. It's weird. It's weird when you put yourself in those positions, isn't it? It's really strange. It's strange when you start to think. It's dangerous. Noah, how are you tonight?
I'm good, man. I've just been watching you. I wanted to ask you, do you find yourself making any progress or headway with some of these people?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Again, there's got to be a willingness, right? And we've had a lot of people tonight that are just unwilling. But I don't always do it for the conversations that I have with people. I do it for people who are willing to listen in the chat. So yeah, I would say we've made progress.
You mean like the ones that have an open mind, that have actually asked themselves a question, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I follow you maybe a month ago, and I see that you really try, 3 days a week, I think it is.
Yeah, 5 weekdays.
Yeah. Have you actually got a person that you got through to them and it was like, oh, let me go research that, or, I didn't know that. Do you ever get that?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to enough people. I mean, I can probably count on 2 hands the amount of people that at least are willing to listen. I know that I've talked to some people who are not going to vote for Trump anymore. I've not got them to commit that they're going to vote for Joe Biden, but they've decided that they're not going to vote for Trump. So I consider that a win.
And you think that you had a hand in their changing their mind?
I don't know if I did. We just had conversation, and I shared with them information that perhaps that they didn't have. I'm not going to take credit for them changing, but the fact that we had a conversation and I informed them about things that they didn't know. There's so many examples. Like, they were convinced that it was Nancy Pelosi on January 6th, for example. And then we went through the chain of command for the DC National Guard. We went through it. And I said, explain to me where the Speaker of the House is in the chain of command. And they're like, I didn't know that was the chain of command. Okay, well then there you go. Misinformation defeated right there on the spot. It's things like that. It's little things like that.
Right. I mean, how fast are you able to identify a person has an open mind or not, as willing to take in knowledge or something they didn't know?
Humbly speaking, my friend, this isn't my first rodeo.
Right.
I've got a pretty good bullshit detector. It goes off pretty early.
Yeah. But I see that you still engage after you see. I see that you let them talk and you just let them go on and on and on instead of just like cutting them right then and there. So you,
It depends though. Like if they first of all, if they say horrible things about, marginalized communities or women or whatever that might be, then I don't give them oxygen. If they're genuinely misinformed and they don't have evidence, it's one thing to be misinformed. It's another thing to be just a piece of shit.
yeah.
I don't engage with pieces of shit. I'll engage with people who are misinformed.
Okay, I see that. That makes sense because I mean I'm watching you and like I see the patience you have and that's something I don't have. I don't. It's just I'm trying to learn myself the mentality that they some of these people have and trying to understand it. And I really don't come up with anything logical or reasonable. It's
Yeah, I mean,
all
the way I approach this whole thing, bro, is that that's why I ask questions. I mean, for me, it's important to level set. Like I ask questions about the E. Jean Carroll case, and I ask questions about January 6th, and I ask questions about the 2020 election. So at this point, if people still believe that the 2020 election was stolen, then I'm not going to give them the platform. There's no reason for me to. If they still believe that, then they're gone. If they don't believe that Donald Trump sexually abused a woman, then I'm not going to have that conversation. They're gone. There's got to be a willingness to say, no, there was no, I didn't see fraud in the elections, but I have concerns about insurrection. Okay, so let's talk about that. Those are sort of the things that I use to determine whether or not somebody's sincere.
yeah. And I mean, I just heard you say that the right is trying to say it's un-American to for him not to have immunity. So since when is it un-American to be held accountable for your actions? That's all I'm seeing. Like,
yeah, right.
If he didn't do nothing wrong, he didn't do nothing wrong. He wouldn't need immunity. But like, why won't you see that part? Like, if he's so innocent, he want a speedy trial and get that whole thing taken care of right away. But
exactly, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
If you're innocent, you feel that you're innocent. Okay, let's get this over with. I'm not gonna hide anything. Whatever you need from me. That's how that should go. But
that's right. I mean, he was given an opportunity.
Cases,
You're right.
yeah.
He was given an opportunity to provide DNA in the E. Jean Carroll case, and he refused.
Well, I mean, and then they'll say, "Oh, it's his right." It is his right. But if he wants to clear his name, you want to do that as soon as possible. Why do you want to prolong that process? That implies guilt.
You're absolutely right, bro. Again, our system is a presumption of innocence. If you've got evidence to clear your name, then why not do it? For me, if somebody accused something of me and I knew I was innocent, I would want to go to court tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's lies, and you'd be like, yeah, okay, she's lying. Let's go get this over with. And why would this woman, E. Jean Carroll, be awarded $88 million if he didn't do anything? And then she got awarded $5 and then another 88 for all these comments he was making after the fact. It's like, if he didn't do nothing at all, why are the courts awarding her money?
That's right. I mean, she got more money because he couldn't keep his damn mouth shut. There you go.
It's like all this stuff is just overwhelming evidence. Like they say, oh, the media told you about Trump, so that's when we stopped liking him. Before that, everybody loved him. I don't think so. He was not liked in New York City way before he even ran for election. Like, all you had to do was,
he's been a piece of shit his whole life.
yeah, just if you had to read some things about how he conducted business in New York City, and you would know a lot of people didn't like him. He didn't pay his debts. Contractors, he would screw them, make them take him to court. He would give them some lowball amount of money and then say, take me to court. It's like, if you had read this stuff before he ran, you would know about him.
That's correct.
Like, it's like all this, how much more evidence do you need to see to actually say, oh, hold on a second, there's something not right here. I just don't see that question as being asked them to themselves.
Well, again, that requires a level of critical thinking that I don't think that they have, Noah, to be perfectly honest. I mean, we know how deep the confirmation bias goes, and it requires a bit of critical thinking and a willingness to want to say, do I have all the information? Because they've been lied to for years, and and it's embarrassing. Like, what's the old expression? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah. And then, what do you think about that argument about both sides being birds of the same feather or something like that? It's like,
I think it's a cop-out argument, quite frankly.
It's like, Okay, if you look at the roll call vote, I saw a roll call vote for a bill that was passed for veterans, and that bill was supposed to help veterans with that was exposed to Agent Orange and other toxic,
Yeah, the PACT Act.
yeah, the pact. And so when you look at that roll call, maybe like 185 Democrats voted for it, and then Republicans voted against it. Like, what do you have against the veterans? It's like, what?
Exactly. And then
It's
they
like,
tried to defend it. And they
tell me
genuinely
how
tried to defend
both
it.
sides are the same when one side votes against the people and the other side doesn't. Tell me how that's the same. It's like, that's the bill. They're telling you one thing and they're voting the other way. So the action is everything. The word's nothing. It's like, I don't understand it, man. It's just,
Well, that's why we got to keep talking about it, bro. So I can hear the exhaustion in your voice, but don't give up. We got a lot of work to do between now and November.
yeah, it's just like, I feel like living in the Twilight Zone every day. And I was like, what world are we living in where a man being held accountable for his actions is against an American? I mean, if you walk into a store and you steal something, you get arrested. That's what's supposed to happen. So what is the problem? That's not what it's like. What? So yeah. Anyway, I'm dropped down, bro. I just wanted to ask you that.
I appreciate you, brother. Keep doing the work, man. I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Oh, you too. Thanks.
I just followed you. Have a good night.
You too.
Later. Well, friends, I got to wrap it up. Sorry I didn't get to everybody tonight. This has been a good conversation this evening. As we can see, there's still a lot of misinformation out there connected to it. And again, you can have an opinion, right? But we can't rewrite the way the context of the text of the 14th Amendment reads. Like you can't say that the Second Amendment is your right under the law, and ignoring the fact that there are other components to the Constitution as well. The facts that we know, January 6th was an insurrection. There is no doubt about that. It's been factually proven by the district court in Colorado and also affirmed by the Supreme Court in Colorado. And even the dissent, the conservative judges that are in Colorado agreed that it was an insurrection. The question whether or not Donald Trump or the president is an officer within our constitutional system. And thank you, Diva. We now have the 1799 Postal Act, which I need to go read, which clearly outlines the fact that as an official, then that would mean you're an officer. So that's going to happen tomorrow. The Supreme Court will be hearing oral arguments tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. And we'll probably get a decision within the next week or so. Don't really know. And then next week by Monday, the Trump team has to respond to the decision by the DC Circuit yesterday about immunity. And again, if you haven't committed any crimes, why would you want immunity? And you'll notice that they're not debating his actions. They're just using immunity to try to get out from under it. So again, thank you all very, very much tonight. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you, mods. You guys are terrific. Thank you, everybody, for joining. A reminder, if you're not registered to vote, please contact your state Secretary of State's office. They'll give you your polling locations. They'll give you your polling hours. Confirm that you're registered, and please vote blue. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you all very, very much. Good night.